All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics of Local America's number one
One.
political radio talk show. Y'all know if it's Friday, y'all know it's time for All Politics Are Local. So, uh, there's a lot going on in the world. Obviously, you all know about the debate. So we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about Trump and the Vice President Harris. So we'll talk about that at some point tonight. But first up, we're going to talk to some folks about what's happening around the abuse of fentanyl. We'll bring them on. We'll introduce them to you. Of course, we're going to have Dennis Porter on as well with a number of other people. So we'll bring them on. We'll ask them to introduce themselves because Donna, of course, our other co-host, is not here, so we don't really have their backgrounds and know that much. So we'll have them do that. And then what's going to come up at 6:30 is going to be Reverend Conrad Tillard. Of course, he is along with the vote, so he'll be on with Jonathan, and they both will talk politics. And I think he'll talk a little something about a video he sent me as it related to a very controversial young lady in our community. So he'll talk about that. And then what's up at seven, Zaid?
I don't have it in front of me.
All right. Well, it looks like it says something about the former federal prosecutor, Charles Watkins.
That's probably Jonathan's conversation on the debate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
Jonathan's conversation on the debate. After that, we'll have at 7:30. We'll have Linda Carter, who's one of the co-founders of Public Square Amplified, and some of their student journalists.
okay.
Talk about Democracy Day, which is a journalism concept that I'm actually just learning about myself. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. This is a space where they really want to lift up journalism's ethics and practice. Oh, Donna is here. All right, here she goes. Very good. And so I'm looking forward to it. And we haven't had a chance for Public Square to talk about their actual work. Public
Okay.
Square facilitated an important conversation we had with the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves. Was a hell of a conversation, and he's a hell of a leader, right? A strong voice in the Caribbean. But we haven't had the chance for Public Square to actually talk about themselves. So that'll happen in that half hour. After
Okay.
that, Amber Reed of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders of New Jersey. They had been out in front on the tragedy that was the police killing of Victoria Lee in a mental health crisis, literally on the day that we were shutting down cities all over the country for Sonia Massey. I can't make this stuff up. So it's a full plate tonight. Full plate tonight as always.
And Zai, any updates with Sonia Massey? Do we know? Because there's so much going on in the news cycle that it's kind of taking a back seat, or you say page 12 in the paper. Any updates with Sonia?
Not so much in her case, but
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, her case reignited the question of police brutality, and there have been a number of, story or press-worthy cases that are popping up all over the place. The most high profile was, of course, has been the Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Kyrie Nichols' case is going to trial next week. We had a
Mm-hmm.
violence interrupter, a case that I'm really trying to get a handle on in D.C. that just got killed by the police, right? And like right here locally, we have Victoria Lee. So there've been a lot of bad stuff with police brutality still being very much in the air, and that needs to be brought back into the national conversation.
And before we bring our guest on, we know all over the news that Mayor Adams, um, people have been resigning, and I think a week or two ago he did a press conference in Jersey. Any updates on that, or we should wait till next week, or maybe wait till Conrad come on?
I didn't know about him doing a press conference in Jersey. That's interesting. Uh,
Okay.
he's definitely in the hot seat, and I hope his
Okay.
hands are clean because the feds are all up.
Yes.
They're on him for real.
Well, the whole police is, it's a whole network of, and now it
Let me
just
say this.
oversees.
You ready now? I got to say this though.
Yes.
Folks are all in different places with Mayor Adams, right? But under
Hmm.
his watch, you're seeing this corruption and you're seeing a retreat from any kind of police accountability. Stop and frisk escalates. Complaints against the police escalated. Police use of excessive force on legitimate protests escalated. So policing and community relations have gone backwards under Eric Adams, unfortunately, and he needs to be held accountable for that.
And we still had a shooting at the Caribbean Day Parade and that. Okay. So we got a lot of work to do. Okay. Are our guests in the background?
Well, all I see is one of your guests on camera. There are two others back there, but I don't see them on camera. So I'll bring the one that is on camera.
Yeah. And hey, Mr. Porter, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, and yourself? Hello, gentlemen. How
Okay.
are you?
All right. How you
Good.
doing, brother?
Welcome,
Eh,
welcome.
So, Donna,
And
you have two other people in the back, but I don't see their cameras on. So I don't know if you want to bring them on unless they're.
okay,
Or you
Earl.
tell them.
Earl may not. Do you know, Dennis, if Earl may use a camera or not? He just may use his voice.
Well, he was having trouble getting on. At first, he didn't. He said he hadn't gotten the link, but I told him you sent me the link, and I sent it to him. He
Okay.
can't. He. I think he's having trouble getting on.
Okay. So I sent it to him too. So if you see Earl, you can send Earl in.
Well, I see someone named it looks like Sherry Porter, and I
Yes.
see somebody named Hassan.
Yeah, those are probably just guests who are part of Prodigal Sons and Daughters.
They
Okay.
got
So
they
send
got
them.
they
Take
don't
them out. Yeah, they
yeah.
don't need the link. Send them to the front, and they just need to go to Facebook Live or YouTube and put in all politics are local.
Yeah, you could just tell them that. Just tell them that leave the the green room. Tell them to leave it. They there. I can
Mr.
take them.
Porter, you heard me?
They heard
Uh, yeah, they heard you, I believe.
Okay.
Hassan is still there. Sherry left.
Sherry and Hassan just go to Facebook Live,
Or
all
YouTube.
politics, or on you. Pardon me, YouTube. All politics are local.
with the letter R.
Uh, with an R. All politics are local on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yep. Or
we
on
got we
Facebook, just
got
go
that
to
all.
All Politics Are Local.
So, Dennis, let's start until Earl joins us. Earl is the parent who brought the story to me. He's a lifelong, born and raised in Orange, contemporary of my oldest, Mr. Earl. Hey,
Hey, I made it.
and you made it. And he's a friend of my
Right.
oldest brother, and they grew up together. And, he'll start telling his story. And Mr. Porter, as he said, he works with Prodigal sons and daughters. And what brings us today is as many cities are being challenged with this fentanyl pipeline. And we even heard it at the debate, as a result of borders and things being open, people just don't come through borders. Other things come through borders. So, Earl, I'm going to let you start. And remember, we're on a tight schedule. So
Right.
be tight and inform the people what we're here for.
Okay. Thank you, Donna. And my name is Earl Scott. And thanks everyone for allowing me to participate today. Anytime I have an opportunity to talk about my son, whereas it could be beneficial to other parents, I desire to do that. 6 years ago, I lost my 22-year-old boy as a result of fentanyl poisoning. And it was very traumatic for me. He was having some difficulties with his life, but he had a full ride to Rutgers. Went to high school from the seventh grade onward, but he made a wrong turn, and it cost him his life. And my oldest daughter, who was a police officer in East Orange, found him about 100 yards from her job up there on Southmont Avenue. So it was devastating. So um, I've done everything where I work at. I work with people coming home from prison and people with substance abuse issues, and I've tried to make an effort to express that to offset what fentanyl is doing to our community, drugs, period. So this is my plight, and when this opportunity came along, I wanted to talk about it because I love my son. He would have been 28 years old now. He's been gone 6 years, and I had to wash and wrap my son, and I joined a few websites dealing with fentanyl, and I'm doing my best to write different people in Congress and different people in political standings to do prevention through education and awareness, harm reduction strategies, treatment and support services, policy and regulations, and things of those natures to offset the damage of fentanyl. And I go around to his high school where he went to Barringer. He was number 9 in the city academically to express his story. You know what I mean? And it was such a loss to the whole family, but and it hurts. And I'm still going through some grieving process, but I'm doing my best to share the message of trying to offset, you know, the damage that fentanyl and heroin and things of that nature is doing to our community. And I love my son very much. And I wrote to the mayor of Newark, who was running for governor, and gave him about a 10-point plan to address fentanyl because most of the people that's losing their children to fentanyl is white people, white parents. And on their sites all over the internet, most of them have lost their sons all over the country, white people. And so I wrote him and tell him that when he is politicking and lobbying for for the election, for the campaign to address this issue, because it's very important that this issue that is damaging in our community is addressed. But like I said, I never thought that my son would die before me, and but he left here before me. And I've lost 2 sons. I lost a son very early on in 1972, but this was my oldest boy here, and I put up a picture of him if you guys can see it. Uh, and this is what I deal with every day of his loss. And he would have wanted me to spread the word of to don't get involved with narcotics and drugs of those natures. So I'm trying to be brief. I'm like rushing a little bit, but I'm doing my best to try to spread the word and help others not to take that path that he does. Because where I work at, I work with people coming home from prison, and I have to tell them sometimes that you got your whole life ahead of you. My son is down on 1 and 9 in Old Bridge, and he can't do anything for himself anymore. And all I can do is pray for him. But you have your whole life ahead of you. Don't waste it going back out there, getting involved with drugs and risky behavior. So that's my message. Short, beneficial, and precisely to the point. And I could go on and on, but I just wanted to stress that I'm out here in the trenches each and every day because I work with parolees, trying to offset the damage that it's doing to the African American community, people of all colors. So that's
As we
what I had to
transition,
say.
as we
Excuse me?
transition to Mr. Porter, I'm just saying, Errol, 1 second. As we transfer to Mr. Porter, if anybody has any
Yes.
questions, you may remember his face because he was on the bus with us a year we went to DC. It's him and his son.
He go back a lot
Yes.
longer than that, brother Scott.
Hmm.
I recognize you from years back. I recognize you, and I just
Rick,
left one of your co-founders. We were at a retreat for the Brick City Peace Collective together, and one of the things that your co-founder did is bring prodigal sons and daughters into the Newark community violence intervention ecosystem, right? So y'all not out
Yes.
there by yourselves. I'm gonna say this too.
sir.
It's a question of policy to help y'all right away, right? I have been trying to have, and I'm not the only one, a conversation with elected officials in the community surrounding Newark to come up with a greater Newark strategy around community-based violence intervention. We have brought down violent crime in Newark by more than half to a 60-year low. And we've got other programs that are doing what Prodigal Son is trying to do, particularly around opiate addiction and opiate
Right.
training, opiate relief, right? Knock out all of that. Okay. So but we have those same problems in East Orange, those same
Hmm.
problems in Orange, those same
Yes.
problems in Irvington, same populations. same
Yes.
set of conditions, right? And for our folks with real needs and all of those factors that we associate with ultimately becoming victims of violence, and addiction is another dimension of community-based violence, right? So I just want y'all to know that you're not alone. Brother Henry got you in a good place here in Newark, but conversation needs to extend to our other communities right around Newark, and that there definitely needs to
Right.
be greater investment on that front. So I just want to just lift you up in that way.
Let
and,
me
Yes,
just
sir.
say
and
this,
let
and I thank you, brother. Let me just say this right here. If you can see this right here, can y'all see this picture? This is after I had washed my son's body. This is my son right here, and 22 years old. And this is what I shared it in when I do go to speak to let other students and young people see this because, he's gone. But I appreciate what you just said, brother. And I've seen you in the mass year plenty of times. In any way that I can contact you or get with you in any kind of way, I would like to do that.
I'll take care of that, Zaid.
Okay, okay.
Um, Ed, any questions, or you want me to keep moving?
Keep moving.
Keep
Okay.
moving.
As we go over to Mr. Porter, I do want to remember you guys to kind of put this week in your calendar. This is the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference week. This is a week where it may have been good to take a trip to DC, a day trip to DC, bus, car, whatever, because as you know, they have the sessions that are specifically detailed towards health and community and things like that. And you could have been right in front of the committee members and and specifically Congressman Danny K. Davis, because he's the author of the Reentry Act and he does a lot of work in this area. So please don't let those tools fall below. Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Um, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on. I think that for one thing, more infinite information, particularly in our community, has to be stepped up concerning fentanyl, as the brother Muhammad pointed out. Uh, what most people don't realize is that fentanyl is an actual painkiller that began as a tranquilizer for elephants.
Right.
So you're talking about a drug that's 100 times more potent than morphine and 50 times more powerful than heroin. And you're talking about something the size of 4 grains of salt can kill you. The worst part about this is that most are exposed to it without knowing that they're being exposed to it.
Yes.
Fentanyl is being added to a number of things. In addition, it's being added to things like heroin, cocaine, and even prescription look-alike pills. So
Yes.
people are taking Xanax and other things like that don't realize that they are coming in contact with fentanyl, and
Right.
it's a
That's
killing a disproportionate amount of young people. From 2019 to 2021, the overdose deaths among those 10 to 19 years old doubled in the United States.
right.
You're
That's
talking
right.
about 70,000 deaths last year. We
Wow.
may we're at risk of coming close to matching that number again now. So what we see in our community is that we have to become more proactive in how we're approaching this drug. We may even have to think in terms of developing think tanks among our youth to assist us in combating this. We are at greater risk because there's less of the normal function of families going on in our community. So our children are much more vulnerable to it. Narcan, which is often used to reverse the effects of fentanyl, is really helpful to have it now around us.
That's right.
Schools should consider having it on site.
So
Restaurants,
Mr. Porter, let's pause right there. So at one time for the AIDS crisis, they began handing out needles. So maybe we can get with our hospitals and see if their outreach can just start hitting the blocks and passing out Narcan.
yes, we need to
Is-
do that as
Right.
much as possible, sister. That's right.
That
That
would be
is
some good
without question where
idea.
we are with that.
Right.
Now,
That's
the other sad part about this is that um, a lot of people get affected by fentanyl without even knowing it, meaning even family members of those. You can touch fentanyl and it can kill you. You can come in contact with it and
Is that toxic? Right.
touch it, and it can kill you.
Yeah, I think it happened in a daycare when a
So just think
baby
about
yeah,
was
how
laying in crib.
vulnerable that makes any of us at any time.
right. Wow, that's deep.
That's right. And this has become a very dangerous practice here at holiday times like that, where, of course, we have these people in our community who are mentally ill, but intelligently mentally ill, who are setting out to hurt children. And they can insert these things into candies and different things like that. So it's as important that
Right.
we create a drive, a think tank, action group that actually gets out here, as you say, sister, and really get this out here into the hands of people. Because once it happens, you only have a few minutes to react to it because it kills them very fast.
And Mr. Porter, so what actions are you taking at Prodigal Sons? What are you doing specifically at Prodigal Sons to kind of eliminate and help people directly and meeting them where they are?
So we just created a branch of our organization called Walk in Wellness. Now, Walk in Wellness deals with both the holistic and clinical side of treatment. Holistic, we mean in the sense of getting, as we said, more involved and getting the community involved, getting even our children involved, really educating them about what's going on, creating an actual campaign. You know, Sun Tzu believed um, that to address a problem, you first address it with a psychological war. For years, Prodigals has produced commercial illustrations that help to kind of prevent or deter youth by educating them ahead of time with visuals. So we not only that, but we build these think tanks with youth so that the youth can come together to create ideas to help participate in the role of getting the message out to their peers. So we see that as something that is a power at our disposal. It's not always about getting someone to give us money. It's about being proactive and educating ourselves so that we can act swiftly. So that's just one of the main things we're doing now, as well as what everybody else is doing in terms of trying to raise money and get in the hands of the community the Narcan and anything else that will help us in the way of material to get the word out.
Excellent. Excellent. I just got a question. The brother that spoke when I was speaking, your name, Brother Saeed,
That's right.
is that his name?
That's
Yes, I
right.
think you might have known my son's family because his grandmother, Sister Anita, on Branford Place for years. My son worked in that store down there since he was a little boy, right on Branford. Kareem and Amita.
Okay. He does look familiar.
Yeah,
He does
yeah,
look
yeah. He
familiar. Yeah.
worked in that store his whole life. Yeah, because his grandmother just died about 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
But I think that's excellent what you're doing, Dennis. And we've talked about this, so I think that harm reduction strategies and treatment and support and policy and regulation, and also bringing people together to be able to, as the brother said when he was talking to you, having community support to be able to go in the community and like what we all do, come together in some kind of way, and to be able to get these Narcon kits.
Well, what I will say is the conversation is just beginning.
Yes.
We have a behind the scenes conversation and move forward. So you'll probably be hearing from us more and more as our audience, hits us with questions and we have our discussion. So thank you for opening this conversation.
Before
there
they
will
go,
be great. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
before they go down, I want them to know about one of the forces that are doing the work on the ground in Newark that you should definitely be partnering with. That's our Newark Community Street Team, right? And Brother Devad Sanders is their Narcon person, and they do trainings.
Wait, Zaid, what you're saying is very important. If you're not talking, can you mute your mics?
Yeah, we did static. That's a little better. Yeah, no. Newark Community Street Team, one of the first organizations built in our community-based violence intervention ecosystem, one of the best organizations with a national reputation. Devad Sanders is their point man for narcotics training and all of that. They do regular trainings at the Newark Public Library. They do all those things that you're talking about, right? So they're embedded here in Newark, and you definitely should be partnering with them with the work, especially as you're dealing with these outer, East Orange, and all of that. Yeah, you got a solid ally that's right in Newark doing the work. They take some pressure off of you trying to get things done.
And Zaid, what about them going to the Newark Anti-Violence? Do they need to make an appointment or they can just walk over? I
That's
can't hear
totally,
you.
that's totally different.
Thank you so much
Okay.
for that, brother.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was excellent, Saeed.
yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. I thought that was what you was telling them in the beginning. Okay. So again, Ed, any follow up?
No.
Okay. So we will continue this conversation in the background and we'll be reaching out to you.
I would
Thank
just
you.
like to leave our phone number if
Okay.
anybody wanted to reach.
No, you're going to get the last word. I'm just saying the
No,
last
if
question
anybody
for you.
wants,
No, don't, Dennis, you're going to get the last, you two are going to get the last word. I just got one more question for you and you can do it all in the last, when you answer the question. So thank you. We'll continue the conversation and please know this is just the beginning and the end. On All Politics Are Local, we always have one question that we ask our
yes,
guests.
ma'am. Thank you.
When you're in the midst of doing your work, what hip hop artist or group do you listen to help you keep motivated? Because this is a hip hop politics
Mm,
show. What artist is it that inspires you to
okay.
keep moving forward in these challenging times? Earl, you could start. Dennis, you could start. Whomever.
What are you asking? The last word?
Give us any information that you have. That in last word, we also want to know what hip hop artist, individual or group, do you listen to when you're trying to do the work for your son, prodigal sons, during these challenging times.
To be honest with you, I just listen to jazz, something soothing and slow. So I mean, I hope I'm not, I'm not really a hip hop listener, but I respect it. But I usually listen to jazz or something, Chris Bodie or something very soft to help me to be able to stay motivated and moving forward. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
That's your answer. That's all right.
No.
All right.
Listen. My brother. Where do you think these hip hop artists are getting those beats from? Right? They're listening to.
KRS-One.
Right. They're listening to
Right.
those songs. So.
I'm 71 years old, so.
A little older. Your brother's a little older than us. Yeah.
And Dennis, your song and the number and information you want to put out. Mr. Porter, your song and the number and information you want to tell us.
I don't know.
Zaid, can you repeat it for me?
Dennis, can you hear us? We want you to put out the number. Then I don't think they're hearing us. Can either of y'all hear us?
I can hear you say.
Okay. What's the number for the organization?
For Prodigal Sons. Okay, I'll get it and I'll get it and we'll talk. We'll put it out later in the thing.
You have my number. You have my number, Donna.
Wait, Mr. Porter, you back? Mr. Porter?
He can't.
Dennis. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. And I will put the number before the show goes off tonight. Thank you for being here. We appreciate
Thank,
you.
thank you, and I'd like to be in touch with everyone. I would appreciate it. I really need your assistance. Okay.
Right on.
All right. All right, Donna. Take care.
All right. All right. Peace, Brother Conrad.
Peace.
Hey,
Grace and
Radio
peace
Raheem. How you doing, sir?
to all of you. How are you doing this evening?
Haven't seen, haven't
Heavy
seen,
month.
seen Brother Conrad in a month of Sundays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And
Well,
every time Conrad come on, Brother Conrad, let me tell you something, man. How is it that you're able to keep your mustache a little black, but the rest of the stuff go gray?
That's
I
that
don't know.
mountain top.
It's
That's that
starting
Moses.
it's starting to become more salt and pepper. It's natural. So God does it. And I tell
Yeah.
people all the time, either you lose it or it goes white. There's
Yeah.
no-
I was like,
nothing in
damn,
between.
Conrad is the only brother I know got a two-piece. Like,
Yeah.
how's it-
It's starting to fill
No,
in.
no, I know,
I mean,
Minister. You sitting at the burning bush. I see that work. I see it.
Yes, I'll be 60 years old on
Hmm.
September 15th. So
Oh, you're still a baby.
I may be, but I've been around for a very long time, and hopefully
You
I
ever,
have
you
a
ever,
long time to go.
Or
Conrad,
you
you
can
ever,
dye it. You could dye it blonde to stay off the gray for a little
No,
while.
I'm gonna leave it natural.
Hey,
Loose
hey,
lips.
hey, Conrad, you've heard that saying before. Thank God I don't look like what I've been through, though.
Amen.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I probably do, so I ain't gonna touch that one.
So
So
Zaid gives us a peek on the chin of his gray.
Right.
I gotta, this
But when
ain't
you're
nothing.
bald and clean shaven, you always look younger. So that's an advantage for
That
men.
is true.
You
That's
know what I mean?
absolutely
It takes
true.
years off of you. Yeah, it
That's true.
does.
So
That's
y'all
true.
are three contemporaries, and
So
look at the
where's
look.
old Jonathan tonight?
He said he's running a little late, and
Okay.
he said he'll be here in about 15 minutes.
I
But
can't believe that.
because he's angling to argue with you, so
I
you know
can't, I
that.
can't believe he would miss out on an opportunity to argue and
Exactly.
debate.
You know that.
Diplomatically discuss.
Yeah,
Hey,
absolutely.
but Conrad, I do want to talk a little bit about before John
Sure.
jumps on. You sent me, that video with Candace Owens, right?
Yeah, I sent that from Mark Lamont Hill posted that because if you remember when we were putting together the conference in Newark, what I continued to challenge the organizing group is that you have to have Black people representing all ideological perspectives. Many people saw her as the personification of persona non grata. But now Mark Lamont Hill he agrees with her on her position now on Israel. So now he's posting her words. So my point is, in politics, there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. And
That's right.
we're the only people that we personalize everything. I think it's the psychological damage of slavery. We are so easily offended. Thomas Sowell says, actually, it's not the psychological damage of slavery. He said it is following the white hillbillies, the white folks from the Scott Irish that had a very dangerous and dysfunctional culture in Europe. And because they were the overseer class in America, African Americans had most contact with that class. And he said, that's why we fight and will kill each other over an insult. He said, that has nothing to do with Africa. It has even nothing to do with slavery. He said, now that's his theory, that came from, he has a brilliant book called Black Hillbillies. And he charged that. But my point is this: we ought to be able to disagree. We ought to be able to discuss politics, have different perspectives, and realize we're not going to always agree.
Right.
And that's it continues to be a sense of disappointment to me how Black people, if you don't agree with the group, if you don't agree with the prevailing idea of the moment. You become a Tom, you become Aunt Jemima, Uncle
Right.
Remus, and these kinds of things. So
And the new word, Conrad, is they cancel you.
yeah, they cancel you,
Mm.
and it's just it's just absurd. It's really juvenile, and that's what I continue to push for. That we
Right.
broaden our thinking, and we understand that we've had people. When I hear people, young people, diminish the legacy of Booker T. Washington and call him Uncle Tom, it's just sad. But we're doing that today because there's somebody today that's thinking differently and challenging us to think in a different way that we're discounting. So my goal is always to say, if you really respect Black people, then you respect Black people who have different ideas, and you at least give it full faith and credit because you may learn something from that person. You know what I mean? All of our great leaders. There was a time when Black folks thought that Amiri Baraka was crazy.
Right.
Yes, they did, right there in Newark. Okay,
Right.
and he was roundly rejected. Now his son is the mayor. There are people who don't agree with the nation and think the nation is crazy. There are people who have dismissed the Black church for all the Black church has done, and it just continues to challenge me, and I push back on it at all times, in all circumstances. Yeah.
Yep. But Conrad, can we wait a minute, Don? I just want to put something for 1 minute. I did get an opportunity too, Conrad, to take a look at that video you sent me. And I just want to, because I can sort of see where Mark is coming from, because she gave the stats, which was interesting. When she started talking about the number of babies that were killed, she started talking about the kind of bombs that were being dropped, right? Those are undeniable, right? I think that when you present that kind of evidence, I think it's undeniable. And I think that for most Black folks that got position, they are afraid, Brother Conrad. I think that that's what that is, because they've seen how even if you disagree with the Jewish community, how they can attack you, right?
Well, but see, here's the point, though. The point is, this is a woman that is considered persona non grata in the Black community,
right?
And I was just pointing that out to say, and I fault really people like Mark Lamont Hill and a lot of these academicians and even Roland Martin journalists, because they try to create an environment where people who express different ideas are ostracized from the Black community. Now, the irony of it is all of these Negroes, generally speaking, work in the academy, elite universities, are constantly around the political class, but somehow they become the arbitrators for authentic Blackness. And that, to me, is an absurdity. And so whether it's that issue or any other issue, Candace Owens has said some very profound things that challenge us. Not that I agree with her on everything. She was debating a very good friend of mine, Shmuley Botiak. He's a good friend of mine. I mean, we've worked together on a number of issues, and we don't agree on everything. But the point I was making was to try to silence people and say that they have no value or because they have a different point of view. I think it's just wrong for us to think like that.
Okay, got it. Go ahead, Donna. You can.
Hey, Reverend Conrad. Good. Just sitting a little still these days, so I had the opportunity to binge on Madam Secretary, which is maybe something 5 years ago.
Madam
And
Secretary?
yes, and it's on Netflix, and it was about her role in the government to the president. But what the irony of it is that everything that they're showing is 6 seasons, about 20 shows each season, is actually going on now. And they did Ukraine and stop it. Her philosophy was diplomacy. We do not have to use war. Let's use diplomacy. She was a staunch diplomatic.
Right.
And she put that out. And even Designated Survivor, I watched that, and how these stories are art imitating life,
Mhm.
and but they're getting it so, like, within 90%, I would almost say, of what's going on. And is this the background of disgruntled workers telling their stories, resulting in scripts and things like that?
Mhm. I don't know. It's a very good point. In other words, you're saying these television programs become eerily close to real life. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, no, I get it. I would imagine so. You know what I mean? Like you said, there's so many people who have worked in government, whistleblowers, and people who may not want to come out, but they will share that information. I would think that that's probably true because some of it is, as you said, I don't watch the program, but some of the programs I've seen, they're eerily reminiscent of real life situations.
Mhm.
So,
So,
so Donna, I know you wanted to ask, and the only reason we're moving fast is to
yeah.
talk so we can give John his time. But Conrad, we wanted to ask you because Donna opened the show tonight
Uh
where
huh.
she was asking what was going on with Eric Adams, what's happening in New York, and we wanted to see if we can get your opinion on this total shakeup that's going on. Is this an attack on Mayor Adams
I
or
don't. I don't know. I don't think so. That's everything I've heard is that the mayor is not a target of any investigation. Uh,
Good.
but there are two FBI investigations. The most recent one was, of course, the raiding or the visiting the homes of uh, David Banks, the school's chancellor, Phil Banks, deputy inspector, commissioner, inspector, Terrence Banks, their brother, was a political consultant, Sheena Wright, first deputy mayor. Um, and of course, Edward Caban, who was until yesterday, or today actually, the police commissioner. He has resigned. Apparently, he's still declaring that he's done no wrongdoing. I haven't heard anything criminal, with the exception of the charge from a black nightclub owner that there was some kind of racket going on between the brother of the police commissioner and one city hall worker who was fired yesterday, where they were sort of being steered to the brother of the police commissioner to pay for protection or handling the problems of police harassment when these club owners would get complaints about noise and so forth and so on. That's the only criminal thing I've heard of. And quite honestly, there's no reflection on the police commissioner or the mayor because I don't know that they even know what's going on. But if the brother of the police commissioner was charging people and then using his proximity to power
Mm,
to penalize black homeowners and black business owners or any citizen of New York, then they should be prosecuted.
mm,
There's no question about it.
mm.
The
I have,
misuse of power, it's abuse of power, and they should be held accountable.
Mm.
okay. And I have two more questions.
Sure.
The Caribbean Day Parade, is that pretty much wrapped up with the shooting? And number two, I believe Governor wait, I'm sorry. I believe Governor Holcomb upstate, they was doing something where a bridge that divided a t- a town is going to be taken down, and the city is going to be rebuilt. Did you hear about that?
I'm not familiar with that, uh,
Okay.
but
And
in terms of you ask about
the shooting
the
at the Caribbean Day Parade.
yeah, that's unfortunate. Yes, I'm sure that's over for the year. Uh, Now, the last I heard, the individual had not been caught yet.
Hmm.
He shot, I think, five people, and that's really sad, But when you think about it, over a million people over the course of 2 days, that is it's a miraculous feat, and it's
Right.
unfortunate that a great cultural celebration would be marred like that by someone who, you know, well, put it this way: the police are in hot pursuit of him, and I'm
Right.
sure before long they will hold him accountable as
And they
well.
were able to they were able to control the environment and let the parade continue to the end, correct?
Right. Which is
Okay.
that is one of the eighth wonders of politics. The city's handling of that every year. It's a great event. It's a huge event by any standard, and generally speaking, they're peaceful.
Yes,
You
they
know,
are.
Conrad, and when we were coming through, man, almost 30 years ago, that was one of the greatest, events you could go to, man.
It
Right.
still is.
Remember
It
Bird
still is.
It still is.
out there? You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
now, every year we hear about this nonsense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like giving us
Yeah.
negative publicity. I mean, come on,
It's
man.
still a great event.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's still
and
a great
they trying to dampen it with making it so that because you hear black folks say, "Oh, I'm afraid, I want to go." I mean, that's the goal, right? That's the goal to put the publicity out there so that our people stop going out there and fellowshipping and hanging out and eating the food. Because you don't hear that at this Italian convention that's all weekend. You know what I mean, right? They're not putting that out there.
Well, my only pushback on that is if the Italians are shooting each other, then it's going to be on the news. I mean,
I don't know if
at
you
the
hear
end of
it.
the day, I think, the fact of the matter is over 1 million people come out. One person shoots. So let's keep it in perspective. Our people did, for the most part, what they're supposed to do. And, one of the things that I'm challenged with is that we are the only people that have to account for every individual
Yep,
in our
absolutely.
race.
All the time.
If a not if 1 million people shy of one do what they're supposed to do in an event, then I would just say arrest him, lock him up. He
Right.
may be my color, but he's not my kind.
Right,
Right.
right.
That's right. Look who's here, Reverend Conrad.
I see.
Hey,
Jonathan, how
Hey
you doing?
John,
I'm
John,
good, man. I'm good.
hey John. As soon as Conrad came on, he said, "Where's my adversary? Where's that guy?" you know, who?
And
And
we were talking,
especially this week, he's like, "Wow, I mean, this is the week to talk trash." I mean,
yeah, and
when
we
that
were,
in that Biden debate, wow, like I was feeling kind of like, "Wow, Conrad, you're right. Like that was a weak performance Biden had. Like he needs to get out the race. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like, am I gonna vote for him anyway? Yeah, I really don't like Trump, but that's not gonna excite anybody. That's just, oof, man, wow. I mean, the Democrats really need to get right, and Biden needs to step down because when someone performs like that and they're so clearly out of their mind, there is no way that they're going to excite enough people to be president. That's just not going to happen.
Well, the only thing
And
that's interesting about that is the day before that event, we were being told over and over again that he was sharp as a razor, and people had never seen him sharper. So, again, the media can make you and it can break you. And
mm,
as far as
but
the
but
media was
but
concerned, as far as the media was concerned against Trump, they loved him. But when he stepped on a banana peel and fell off, the media turned on him with the same viciousness that they have for Trump, and it became a constant building and building that Biden's got to go. Biden's got to go.
well, it's
And
true though.
the
It's
problem
true.
with that for me
It's true.
is that as Black people, we have never been so reliant on the mainstream media because the media said Martin Luther King was a communist. The media said Malcolm X was a hate teacher. The media has always been against the people that media said the Panthers were dangerous, and media said Paul Robeson was a problem. So
Yeah, but our
it's
eyes
just
told us that
interesting.
Biden wasn't going to be able to win this. Our eyes
Well, I
told us
mean
that.
that
but
that's
we,
that's
but we
politics.
fit, but we fast forward,
Hmm.
and a month later, it's been dealt with, and
As
now we have
as
a
a
candidate.
as a
Go ahead.
as a debate coach, right? As a
Hmm.
person who coaches debate,
Yeah.
I especially like these times of year. I just love them. And I just have to say, of all the presidential debates I've ever seen, that was the most thorough performance by one of them that I just haven't seen somebody like play somebody like that. I mean, she was like, "Hey, hey, Scruffy, I know you're gonna fall for this bait. Go for it. Go for it, Scruffy, because you're not qualified to be leader of anything." How's your king do? How do you
Well,
think
I
your
mean,
king did, man?
the man has already been president for 4 years, and the country didn't fall apart. So I think it's hard to make the argument he's not qualified to be president. He was successfully president for 4 years.
You say successfully.
Secondly,
Over 1 million people died of COVID that didn't need
well,
to
but
go.
COVID was a global pandemic. That wasn't his fault.
More people died in the United States than any place else in the world.
Business community and the scientific community and had a vaccine in 1 year, so that when Kamala and Biden came in office, there was already a vaccine. So I don't think you could lay COVID at his door.
More people died in the United States than any other country on the planet.
What's
With
that?
a possible except more people died of COVID in the United States than any other place on the planet.
I'm not sure about that statistic. I don't have that in front of me, but I do know this, that even the people who despise Donald Trump, unless they're just fanatical, would not try to lay that at his door, and they would recognize that, again, we had a vaccine in 1 year. So that's
that he encouraged people not to take. Yeah, that was great.
No,
I mean, that's the high death toll. Like, it was unnecessary.
That's not true. That's not true. So, but anyway, you obviously did not ever see the Nixon and Kennedy debate. I thought that was enthralling. You obviously didn't see the debate between Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter in 1980.
No, I was talking about the ones I saw in real time.
The great communicator said, "There you go again," and won by a landslide. So you didn't hear Dukakis fall apart around the question of would he be for the death penalty if someone raped and killed his wife.
This is so much worse than that.
You didn't hear George W. Bush say, "Where's the beef?" I mean,
not a comparison. Not a comparison.
I'm glad you liked that debate, but I don't know if it's the greatest ever.
Oh my God, no one's been dismantled like that. Like some people there's a moment, right? In the other debates that you're talking about, there are moments, right? There's one moment or two moments that kind of capture the debate. In this one, it was the whole, I mean, after the first 10 minutes, and I admit, right? Harris started off slow, right? That, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Answer should have been 4 years ago, there was COVID.
Question. She didn't, right. I know she didn't answer that question.
Right. It was, I think that was just too much prep, and she planned on giving her biography. As opposed to answering that one directly. But then halfway through that particular segment, she started talking about what 2020 was like, collective nightmare. Because like 2020, everybody wanted to forget 2020.
Jonathan, this election is not going to be determined by 2020.
Oh, it's going to be determined by get out.
People are concerned about, it's amazing. I don't know why you want to continue to talk about 2020.
Oh, that was the question.
6. People are concerned about how much eggs cost, how much bacon costs, how much the cost of living is in terms of the high inflation rates. People can't buy homes. Listen, you can like the debate. Kamala Harris is very glib and articulate. There's no question about that. That's, again, why I'm critical of the liberal media, because, in fact, I always find Fox to be more objective, because at least in the conservative media, every one of them said Trump lost that debate. Liberal, progressive media, you can never count on them for anything but propaganda.
Everybody was like,
you can never count on them for anything but propaganda.
They're like, Biden has to go. I mean, that's
they turn and the
conservative media is like,
and these were the same folks,
right?
And these were the same folks that the day before the debate was saying Biden was as sharp as a tack, that there was nothing wrong with him, that they'd never seen him sharper. He's not great in front of the camera, but in meetings, he's sharp as he can.
John, let me ask one question.
It wasn't true in 2020. They just hid him in a basement. He never went out, and the media was so in the tank against Trump, they just put him in office. And they knew his faculties were failing. So I mean,
and let me just say this, Reverend. Conrad, he took it. Kamala did push the envelope when she went right there by naming different naming incident by incidents. And one particular is right here in our home, which is Central Park exonerated. And she went and she put that, and there was no response. How did that? Did you hear that part?
Well, first of all, let me say, I was one of the people who stood with Yusuf Salam. Okay, a whole lot of people talking about the Central Park Five now. Okay, now that they had an international movie, and listen, there was not but a few people in Harlem community that stood with those boys and believed in them. And the foremost of them was the mother of Yusuf Salam. But it was groups like the Nation. Yusuf Salam, I was with him the day before he surrendered. And when he came out of jail, he came straight to my organization, A Movement for Change. He was one of the early members. So I know that case.
But why no apology from the president?
Trump was wrong on that case. But so was everybody else. There were, in other words, first of all, everybody was wrong. All of these liberal so-called New York media types, they were all wrong on that case. So, I mean,
but none of them still wants to double down. Like,
well, I didn't hear him hear him double down. I didn't hear him apologize, which he should do. I would, if I were advising him, my advice would be, hey, you were wrong. I understand why you were outraged. You're a white man, and you heard about a white woman that was raped and beaten, and you heard young people wilding. I get that. You and Koch were the same on that. Koch, Mayor Koch, your Democratic icon and champion. He said the same thing. So what kills me about Black folks is we're very selective in who we point out,
when you're saying selective and pointing out,
we don't talk about Bill Clinton and Joe Biden telling about young Black people when they signed the crime bill in '96. I don't care if they came from a broken home. I don't care. They need to go to jail. We don't talk about that now Negroes. Let me finish this last.
I'm just saying.
Now Negroes are extolling the virtue. Now Negroes are extolling the virtue.
Biden.
What don't
Trump
you know?
Out of his mind.
You know Dick Cheney is
like out of his mind.
Trump. Dick Cheney has
they're eating dogs and cats.
Dick Cheney, the same one that you're calling a murderer.
A point of order. Stop. Point of order. I don't know update, but the Cheney family did come out and make a public statement that they will not be supporting Trump, and they did it in a press conference.
Yeah, but my point is that's nothing to be proud of that he's endorsing Kamala Harris. He's
fair,
a war criminal.
But
he lied to the American people and said there were weapons of mass destruction.
I just needed to ask one question.
Killed hundreds of thousands of people.
Based on that performance, is Trump crazy?
Okay, can I just finish my point and then I'll ask you a question?
Okay.
My point is this. Stop being so morally selective. Dick Cheney is nobody for us to be extolling the virtues of. You hate Trump that much, but the man, when he was in office, not one war happened for 4 years. Nobody died. So I would rather go with Trump than I would Dick Cheney. One thing's for certain, with all of his foibles, Donald Trump is an angel compared to Dick Cheney.
Yeah, but he seemed out of his mind.
Yeah, but
was he out of his mind?
It's no but.
Like in the debate, was he rational? Did he seem rational to you?
Listen,
now,
Donald Trump.
We know Biden not only messed up, but we have reasons to question whether he would be able to do his job.
Donald Trump is
the way he was so easily bait.
Donald Trump is his own worst enemy. He is a flawed messenger. The people who are on his campaign and the people who are advising him, I'm sure they're losing their hair because you can't get the guy to stay on message. You can't get the guy to focus on the things that matter. Kamala baited him, and rather than him stay focused on her record, she's the incumbent. The current state of the United States, listen, in politics,
he seems mentally you describe someone mentally unfit.
Listen.
He can't stay focused, can't stay on message, easily bait, but that's negotiate with world leaders.
You're not a Trump fan. You don't like Trump.
I'm not a Trump fan. I wasn't a Bush fan, but mentally okay.
I just feel
I'm
like
not a Cheney fan, but he's sane.
I just feel like he's a bad messenger, but he got 77 million votes. So what I'm trying to say to you is he earned more votes in the last election than any president ever in the history of the country, with the exception of Joe Biden. He's probably going to do that again. Our country is divided. And the question that Democrats need to be asking, this is what I'm saying. Why is it, as bad a candidate as he is he still in the mix and likely to pull out a victory? It's because the Democrat Party is so left of center, so absurd in the policies. You can't defend the policies of the Biden administration. The night they came in office, opening up the border, you got millions of immigrants who have just flooded into our country. They're right there in Newark, they're right here in New York, and right in the neighborhoods, people are raising hell about this.
Trump,
and you can't justify it. You can't justify
but you can justify your boy. You can justify your boy undermining the legislation that would have put an end to that. Like I'm just saying. All I'm saying is that
undermining what legislation?
When they had
undermining what legislation?
They had the immigration bill, and he killed
Republicans were like, "This is good." You're talking about the border patrol was like, "This is good." Your boy destroyed it, and you're still. All I'm saying is,
Trump is not my boy. Okay, I don't have anything to do with Donald Trump. Okay, but I'm glad that we live in a two-party system, and I'm intelligent enough that I'm going to listen to both sides. I'm going to hear what they're saying. The fact of the matter is, Republicans in the last 60 years have won more elections than they lost. So as a Black person, I'm not throwing all my eggs in one basket, because the Democrats could very well lose this election. And so as far as you talking about the immigration issue, the night Biden came in off, Trump had a policy that you adjudicate your.
But I know we're running out of time.
I tell you what, you asked the question.
If immigration is such a big deal, which it is,
okay,
then why aren't you just equally hard on Trump for killing that bill?
First of all, the night Biden got in office, Trump had a policy that if you were claiming asylum, you stayed in Mexico until your case was adjudicated. The day Biden came in office, that was an executive action. Biden got rid of that. And for 3.5 years, immigrants flooded into this country from all over the world. And then 6 months into an election, he wants to fix it. I don't blame Trump and the Republicans for not doing that. Why didn't he fix that? And I'll tell you, one of the things Trump said in the debate that night that Biden and Harris could do today, he said, if you don't like the status of the border, declare by executive action right now the border is closed. It can be done.
Well,
now, people suffering in Chicago,
there's a lot less
Newark,
immigration right now, and it's at a slowest level in a long time.
We deserve answers for that.
It's actually at a slowest level right now. They push back on that.
As a legislator, I'm just saying real quick, there is a process, and the process was working, Reverend Tillard. It had got out of the House, and it was on the president's desk. He just had to sign it. And instead of signing it, he killed it.
Like Reverend Tillard, it's about solutions, and you blame them both.
President Trump.
You be like, Trump, you shouldn't have done that.
Under the Biden
that was wrong. It wouldn't have been.
That was under the Biden administration.
That's not consistent.
No, that was 6 months ago. If
it's a problem, it's a problem, right? No. The consistency would be like Biden was. If you were consistent, you'd be like Biden was wrong, Trump was wrong for that, and Republicans were wrong for that. If there's a solution, have a solution. That makes sense to me, right? But saying I understand them, that don't make no sense.
Listen, as Trump,
but I'll give you the last word.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because Biden can close the border right now through executive action. He can do it. He can do it. So if you really want to stop the influx of migrants, when I hear Black people in Chicago, Black people in Brooklyn, Black people in Newark complaining about the resources overexpended, crime, violence, no. That's not a small issue. And the Democrats have to answer that question. But we are so busy slobbering over Democrats that we don't even ask them critical
immigrants actually commit crimes.
And that's why we languish in cities where Democrats have run for 50 years and Black people are living in impoverished conditions and in cities that Republicans haven't had any impact in. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, we were talking about Trump being kind of off the hinge.
Yeah, but you got an obsession with Trump. You
no,
have an obsession
he's running for
Trump.
president, and we're like,
Trump
wow.
doesn't.
It's kind of like the same thing. When we saw Biden, we were like, wow, he might not be fit to run. When y'all see Trump, you're like, but we understand.
Well, first of all, there's
that.
no y'all because I am not on Trump's team.
But he's fit to run.
And I'm not going to let you or Roland Martin or anybody else
but he's fit to run.
Because I don't fear any of you. I don't need you to validate me. There's no
based
y'all.
On what you saw,
I'm an intelligent individual, African American, 60-year-old Black man, and
based on what you saw,
I'm not with a group. President. I don't need a group. I'm an independent thinker.
Right, independently, you think Trump.
So there's no y'all. I'm telling you what I think.
You think Trump, based on what you saw, you think he's fit to be president?
First of all, I didn't say he wasn't fit, and I didn't say he was. I said
I'm just asking. What is he fit to be president? Based on what you saw, is he fit to be president?
I think anybody that can keep up with the rigors of a presidential campaign, they're fit to be president. Okay, if you have to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, fly all over the country, make speeches every day, I don't think his fitness is.
I was talking about his mental fitness.
Okay, his discipline maybe, but at the end of the day, it's up to the voters. It's up to the voters. It's up to the voters. I thought the Democrats, basically dispensed with democracy in declaring that Biden was out. Now, I was happy that they congealed around Kamala Harris. I thought that was been more fair because she was the vice president. But the fact of the matter is, I don't want super delegates. I don't respect it. I don't think anybody's more intelligent than me in analyzing things that are important to me and my people. So I don't want super delegates to say he's not fit to run. No, I don't agree with that.
He pulled himself out.
It's up to the American people to vote. And when they go to the polls on the first Tuesday in November, if they vote for Kamala Harris, she'll be our president. If they vote for Donald Trump, he'll be our president. And what Black people need to know is the way we think. Now, gays, they're going to be in no matter who wins. Jews, no matter who wins, they're going to be in at the table. Latinos, no matter who wins, they're going to be there. Women, they're going to split their vote 60-40. But Black people, you watch. Our votes are going to be 99% for Kamala Harris. And when the Republicans, if they win, we're going to be disenfranchised for 4 years or 8 years. And all I'm saying is there are people in the Black community who are saying that's not an intelligent political strategy. 70% of Black people should stay in the Democratic Party. 30%.
Yeah, but you always say that, but you never want to become a Republican.
Our agenda will be there no matter what.
Right, but you never want to go.
What's that?
You never want to. We have this conversation all the time, and I'm like, Conrad, if you were a Republican, I'd respect that.
I live in Brooklyn, New York. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I don't need to be a Republican. I'm a common sense Democrat with my own intelligence and telling my party to stop being so progressive and be more conscious. But there are Black people that live in Republican states. There are Black people that live in states where Republicans are viable. You got to look at the national electorate, Jonathan.
And when you're saying viable,
didn't you say the name of the show was all politics for local?
But the same reason why you're making this decision may be the same reason why other people are making the decision.
Isn't the name of your show all politics are local? Why would I, who live in Kings County, I, who live in Kings County, the most democratic county in America, why would I be a Republican? For what? There are no Republicans in Kings County, so that doesn't even make sense. But I do understand why Black people in Georgia, Louisiana, and New Hampshire would be in the Republican Party, and I would respect them. South Carolina, I'd form alliances with them and say, brothers, if you all win, this is what we need to push. If we win, this is what we'll push. And there'd be cross-pollination and discussion instead of us trying to embarrass each other. You cannot embarrass me. Nobody on this panel has given any more to black people than me. So you can't embarrass me. I am an independent thinker. So I didn't come this far for anybody to characterize me.
Reverend, I said I would give you the last word, and we are over time. But we'll have you back, and we'll continue this conversation
well, we can't let him go. We can't let him go, Reverend. We can't let you go without saying a word about Frankie Beverly, James Earl Jones, and what music are you listening to me? Okay, three things.
We're way
Okay.
over. We're over. All right. Talk to you later.
Well, I hope you
all
all
right,
have
we'll have you back. We'll have you back.
Okay.
You know where I'm coming from. You ask me back every month. You know exactly where I'm coming from.
That's where we want you back. We want you back, right?
All right.
That's right.
So that's it, right? But we definitely want you back because
have a good
because
evening.
of where you're coming from.
Have a good evening.
Hey,
Thank you, sir.
All right. Peace. All right. So more on the conversation that we're having. We have our special guest coming up next, and thank you for your patience. We have Charles Watkins. He is a former federal prosecutor, and we also have Diery Dumas, who is an activist and journalist within the Haitian community, and he is an incredible person who is consistently up on things, his independent journalism. So we very much appreciate having you both here, and it was a fun week. As I said, I'm a debate coach, so I had a lot of fun watching the debates. And just from a debate point of view, oh my gosh, it was one of the most impressive things that I have seen. And I have never seen someone dismantle, like literally dismantle someone for like 70 minutes of point by point dismantlement. I've never seen the psychological games played so thoroughly. And I just want to get your opinions on what's going on within this. So we'll start off with you, and full disclosure, my future brother-in-law, Charles Watkins.
Well, thank you for having me first. Second, I think that what I saw was, with the term now in the common parlance is gaslighting, right? We talk about gaslighting. But what Kamala did was that's how you gaslight a narcissist, right? That's what she did. She saw all of the points that she could poke him on, that she could prod him on, that she could get after him on, and she just led him into them, right? But it was one of those things where it's like, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. Why are you hitting yourself, right? And the perfect example was when she stopped and she said, I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I'm going to invite you to go to a Donald Trump rally. And you're going to see that when you go to that rally, people are leaving. And they're leaving because of boredom and exhaustion, right? She knew exactly the response that would evoke.
And what do you think? What do you think she was thinking? You said she knew the response that would evoke. Explain more about that.
She knew that would get him off his pivot, off his point, and would make him reactionary. And he wasn't going to hear anything other than your rallies are small, nobody likes you, and you're boring. So whatever question he was asked after she said what she said didn't matter, even if it was a question that he was strong on. It could have been a question about immigration, which his base thinks that he's really strong on. He wasn't ready to answer that because he had his fuse had been lit, right? She pushed him to a point where he couldn't answer the next question without responding to her saying that his rallies were boring and they were small and nobody likes going to them. And so because of that, no matter what you said after that, I've won this point.
Now, from your vantage point as a former prosecutor, what was her thinking behind it, right? Like, as in, do you think she did a psychological profile of him, or was it easier than that? Like,
Well,
what is that process?
well, you if as a prosecutor, you have to know who you're dealing with, right? You have to know who you're up against. Not only who you're up against, but who you're talking to, right? So she knew, and I think to answer your question, I think yeah, there was a little bit of psychological profiling there because, and I'll give you an example. I tried a case, I guess about 8 years ago now. Um, there was a defendant who was a misogynist and a narcissist. And he had two lawyers and he was going to take the stand. And I told my co-counsel that I promise you his male lawyer is going to question him. And she didn't believe me. She was like, no, that's not going to happen because the male lawyer had been on the case literally 2 days, right? The female lawyer had been on the case for 2 years. But I was like, he can't be questioned by a woman. He's going to have this male lawyer question him. And lo and behold, when he took the stand, who questioned him? His male lawyer. And why did his male lawyer question him? Because he couldn't be put in a position to be questioned or challenged by a woman, right? And so that's what you're looking at when you're looking at Donald Trump. He can't be pressed by a woman, right? It's like the stuff he was doing with Joe Biden, the sparring that he was doing with Joe Biden, the shots that he was taking at Joe Biden, you know, he had, if not respect, at least acknowledgement of his, you know, personhood, right? The jab, Sleepy Joe, right? Sleepy Joe Biden. But if you notice, it was Sleepy Joe Biden, but it was Crooked Hillary, right?
Mm.
It was Sleepy Joe Biden, but it was Kamala. I'll pronounce her name any way I want to, right? So how do you deal with that, right? What do you do with that? You deal with that in a way that she did, not even with that statement about his rallies, but in the very beginning. I'm going to walk up to you. I'm going to look you in the eye. I'm going to shake your hand. I'm going to pronounce my name correctly so that when you say my name, you're going to know that you're saying it wrong. And you're going to know that I'm not afraid of you, that I am in control here. Right. And so that's how she established dominance from the beginning. And that's what you have to do as a prosecutor. Right. And that's why I told my sister this. I said, for the time that we're in, for the candidate that she's running against, there's never been a more qualified person to run for president.
Right.
Because she needs to be, you need to be, one, have law and order bona fides, because we're in a time in America where there are not necessarily the crime rate is high, but crime, the types of crime that we're having are problematic. So we need someone to deal with that. And when I'm talking the types of crime, I'm talking mass shootings, right? We need somebody who's going to be able to stand in a room and talk like an adult and do that and talk about that. And the person she's running against is a felon. Who better to deal with a felon than a prosecutor?
And I thought also it was smart when she was talking about, like earlier when she was talking about price gouging, and she was talking about perceived corporate crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how that is something that needs to deal with, because that is also someone who's not scared to go up against anybody.
Yes.
Now, what do you think was part of the strategy also, just to do show and tell, as in not to call him crazy, but to just let him to bait him and then let him talk?
And to let him, you know, I think it's a quote that gets attributed to Abraham Lincoln. It's better to be thought a fool and remain quiet than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Well, she allowed him, like you said, she allowed him to open his mouth and remove all doubt. I mean, you have to be unhinged and you have to be a fool when you're in an election, uh, probably the most important, well, the most important election in this nation's history, because it's the next election. So the most important election in this nation's history, where you're on TV in front of hundreds of millions of people And the best thing you can say is the people in Springfield, Ohio are saying that the immigrants are eating their dogs.
Right.
You know? And
just a point of order, prosecutor, I just wanted to say she brilliantly did that because she didn't attack, but she just put it out there and threw them off. It's like they're eating dogs in Ohio, the Haitians, and and it was so insulting. And the next day, people are scared to come to Haiti to visit, come from Haiti to America to visit their families, and they had planned family trips. So the impact of that statement, as crazy it was, it still did damage. And
yeah,
he didn't have the control. He just, yeah, that was crazy. That's it.
it's not even control, it's class. Okay? There's also a bit of classlessness to the way he does things, right? Like, so you have this person who, one, can be unhinged, can come off as unhinged, right? But then two, even when he is in control, when he's quote unquote on message, quote unquote on script, it's still classless, right? There's no decorum there. There's no procedural order. There's nothing, there's no predictability, right? And one of the worst things you can say about a president is they're unpredictable.
And well, I would say probably the worst thing that she showed about him isn't that he was unpredictable, it's that he was predictable, right? And easy to manipulate.
Yeah,
Like I think the demonstration she was like so when she was throwing out lines like Putin will eat you for lunch, like she could have just been like, look, I smacked you around here and you knew what I was gonna do in advance and you still fell for it. Matter of fact, you're gonna keep falling for it. I did the same thing to you like 4 and 5 times and you kept falling for it. What do you think a foreign leader would do? They'd be looking at you, they'd be doing psychological profiles, and they will manipulate you. They will tell you what you want to hear. And she basically said that. And he was like, but Viktor Orban loves me. Like, I
right.
think that on another level, what she demonstrated is he's not fit to be president because he's weak and stupid.
He's a disgrace, according to other foreign leaders, right? According to other foreign military leaders, he's a disgrace, right? These are quotes that she's pulling from people who she's talked to and she's in the know. And the other thing is the reason why you don't go, and this is another thing I commended to her about being a great prosecutor. The reason why you don't go full bore in embarrassing him is because you're not just talking to him,
Right.
right? You're talking to his base, but you're also talking to that slim, because it's really at this point, if you're undecided, you're decided. You know, like so you're talking to that slim margin of quote unquote undecided voters. And I say that as a prosecutor that she did that a good job as a prosecutor because you are talking to a jury, right? Like essentially you are making at this point, you're making your closing argument. Well, this was essentially her opening statement, right? This was the first time America got to hear her on a grand stage talk about herself and what she's going to do as president and put on her case against the opposing party, right?
Right.
But you have to do that without alienating your triers of fact, your jury, right? And the thing you learn as a prosecutor is, I can use $10 SAT words with the best of them. That's not what wins you an election. That's not what wins you a jury. That's not what wins you a trial. That's what alienates people, right?
Right.
Because one of the biggest knocks against the Democrats since 2016 was academic elitism, right? Right? These coastal elites. Remember that term when that term came out? Even though Trump is from New York, right? But he had this way of taking the term coastal elites and making it seem like he's not one of them, right? Making it seem like I'm one of you. I'm not a coastal elite. But bro, you're from New York. You have a mansion in Manhattan, and then you live in Florida, South Florida, where all the coastal elites retire to. But okay, you're not a coastal elite, sure. But if you start pulling him apart like that, like blatantly, instead of letting him do it himself,
Mm-hmm.
you're not poking fun at him. You're poking fun at the people who vote for him.
Okay.
And that's why she had to toe that line and let him do the work for her.
Which is why I'm like, it was so masterful, right? And because Trump was an intimidating debater in that he beat everybody, or at least tied everybody he was against. He destroyed every Republican in 2016. I think he destroyed Hillary Clinton. A lot of people think Hillary Clinton did well. When I saw that, I was like, she lost. And she lost because Hillary Clinton was the most qualified person to ever be nominated up to that point. Donald Trump was the least qualified person to ever be nominated at that point. And at the end of that debate, he looked like he belonged on the stage. She
And that's how
lost.
she lost. Right.
Right. She
Right.
lost. Right. And I thought she lost badly because there's no way those two should have been in the same room.
No.
And Hillary Clinton and Trump should have looked like Kamala and Trump. They
It
should have
should look,
looked like that.
in all honesty, it should look worse than that.
Right.
Because in 2016, he wasn't this. He had never been president. He
Right.
had never been in those rooms,
He
right?
was a talk show host,
Right. He was a talk show host. He was
a reality
a reality
television star.
TV star, right?
Right.
And what Hillary did, like you said, Jonathan, I think that point is well taken. She gave him credibility because she treated him like an equal,
Right.
right? And it was her fate. It was a fatal flaw of her campaign that they looked at him like an equal, whereas Kamala's campaign is looking at him like a fool,
Mm-hmm.
and they're treating him as such, and they're letting him over and over and over again make a fool of himself,
Right.
and
He did.
and not and not dignifying his campaign by making it look legitimate.
It
And
was a
it's
very Kendrick Lamar style of
yeah,
attack. They not like that.
and it's something to say that there's something when you have both zeal and knowledge. You have the youthfulness and you have the knowledge. She's ready. She's in a VP, and you know we're challenged with civics in the U.S., but we should all know that the VP is ready to act on day one should the president not be able to act. She's ready.
Right.
It's just not her job to do anything until the president's not ready. So she's ready.
Right. And
Now,
so the
now,
critique
dear,
of her being vice president for 3.5 years and not doing anything, that's her job, right? Her job is, like you said, is to be ready, not to act. So her job, she's essentially a relief pitcher who's warmed up in the bullpen just in case the starter goes down. But we anticipate the starter pitching 9 innings and giving us a complete game. But just in case they don't, I'm ready to step in. That's the
she,
VP job, and to break the ties in the Senate, to cast a tie-breaking vote in the Senate. That's what the VP does. Like, she can't. She's not making. She can't make. She can't pass executive orders, right? She's not. She has ideas, but her policies are secondary to the president's, right? So she can't. Her vision can't have been enacted. So the critique of her saying, "Well, she was vice president for 3.5 years. How hasn't she gotten any of this stuff done before?" Because that's not her job.
Diery, I want to bring you in. Are you there? Okay, so
You're gonna hit.
are you there?
I'll text them back screen.
Okay. Well, I think that I think he was having some technical difficulties, um, and I know that we're getting ready to get to the end of the segment as well, because I know that we have a lot of people who are backstage as well. Um, but what what is your final impression when you're looking at um, just that technique? Like, what do we need to what can we bring from it based on? Oh, great, Dara, you're here. Hello,
Yes, hello.
hello, hi. And I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to bring you in. They talked about what that common statement that Trump made about that horrible statement that he made about eating animals, etc. and that it has real effect on real people. Um, you have a lot of thoughts on this. You have some thoughts on this. Um, what's going on from your perspective? I know you've been talking to people as well.
And as a reminder, if not talking, please put your mic on mute. And if you hear any background song, just you. Just need you. No background. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hear you kind of very low, but I'm trying to do my best. Sorry for this. I'm still at work, but I wanted to say something about the debate, since we are talking about the debate. And unfortunately, Trump bring the immigrants, especially the Asian. So on the debate, he said like he made a reference to immigrant, but recently we all know that he said the Asian people are destroying Ohio and they're doing a lot of stuff. So my perspective is, when he first started, he got on the Mexican. He wanted to make the Mexican the bad guy. He said a lot of things about people from Mexico. And then he got elected because he circled around American like weak point immigrants. He know how to play on American like sensitive nerve. That's why he did. And then he lost. Now, after the debate, we need to understand the timeline of the situation, especially about the Asian in Ohio. This is a big news. Everybody's talking about it. It will never got so deep or so bad if Joe Biden was still the candidate. After the first debate, everybody understood like he gonna win. And then the Democrat changed something very significantly. And then he said, oh my God, I'm gonna lose. And then he went back to his same rhetoric. Now he's not talking about the Mexican, he's talking about the Asian. Why he did that? Don't forget, Kamala Harris' slogan is freedom. And when you are talking about freedom, the first country or the first people you're gonna see is Haitian people, because we talk about freedom, and she's a black woman, so it's not difficult to understand freedom, black person, Asian. And then don't forget, like President Biden allowed a lot of Asian to come to the United States. Well, now it's gonna be a very discussion between the African American and the Asian. The subject gonna be very sensitive. Now, recently, Trump said all the immigrants are taking black job. He's trying to put African American against immigrant, especially Asian. I never heard someone say, "Oh, those Ukrainian are taking our job. Ukrainian are taking our resources." They never talk about that. I never heard African American especially said, just like the gentleman that raised the question, like African American, A1 America saying they're losing their social benefit because of Asian people. But when the Afghan were coming by the thousand, when Joe Biden left Afghanistan, I never heard them complaining about that. So I think the African American leaders need to do to explain something, especially about the Asian people, to the African American community. We are especially in the same boat. Al Sharpton said it clear. We all are from Africa. The boat left some of our brothers and sisters in Brazil, in South America. They dropped some in Haiti. But if we take my DNA to any one of you on the panel, DNA, and then we do some research, make no mistake, They're gonna find out. So we are related. So we are in the same boat. Now,
And
he said
now
he just wanna.
now we're
Yes, he
actually.
just wanna said something like he wanna make his campaign on Asian head. He just wanna draw us on under the train, under the bus, so he can be elected again. But we need to be very strategic. We need to be very intelligent to not let him change the subject. He lost the debate. He just lost the debate, and then he's going to lose the election. He's trying to change the subject by divided like African American or the white community against the immigrants. And my last point, people need to know why Haiti is in that chaos state. It's because American ammunition, American weapons, they sent them by Miami, they arm those gangs, and the country to blame. The UN made a report, and the State Department, they realize all the harms they coming to Haiti because they from Miami. So we need to sit down, get the facts, and not falling into this trap that this very bad person is trying to put us in. If he continue like that, he's gonna win the election, and then we are gonna be in a deep trouble.
I know that we and I know that we are very short on time, and I know we're going to have you back as well to talk about some of the deeper issues that are going on in Haiti and what people need to go know about, right? Like especially the things that lead to the reason why people are here anyway, because many of the people that they're talking about in Springfield who are here, who are Haitian, are here legally, right? And most people don't know about temporary protected status, and you have all of this very hateful rhetoric that is being used. We definitely want to have both of you back on the show, but one last question, but one last statement for both of you. We always ask the same question of our guest: who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group? Can you tell me and start off, Diery? We can start off with you.
Freedom, freedom, freedom. That's the song that Kamala Harris, the campaign
Okay.
always play. Freedom. That's what we want. So, Kendrick Lamar and also Drake. I know there's a lot of big discussion, but now I'm listening to Freedom, Freedom all day, all night.
Okay.
So
Thank
that's
you.
Kendrick and Beyonce.
Yes,
Prosecutor.
Beyonce. Yes, Beyonce and Kendrick. I believe. Yes.
My favorite hip hop artist, honestly, is Ti.
Really?
Yeah, it's Ti. I think that Ti is not only underrated. I think he's one of the best to ever do it. And I'm gonna say something controversial. Tupac is overrated.
All right. There's the next show,
I
y'all.
want
There's
you
the
to have
next
said
show.
that, young man.
There's the
I
next
knew,
show.
I
He
knew that was
already
gonna get
dropped
a
it. So we can
reaction,
next
but I'm just
show.
Right,
putting it
right.
out there. Tupac is
We gotta
overrated.
put you in with our DJ. We gotta put you in there.
Okay,
I,
absolutely,
I
absolutely,
I've never
absolutely.
even met this brother personally, but let me just say, brother, we got to take that to the courtroom, brother.
Listen, listen. I can run it down. We can have a whole conversation about it. We can have a whole separate show about it. We can talk about it, but
Okay,
I
that
stand
is
on it.
that
Tupac
would
is
be
overrated.
definitely great for a
Oh,
separate
we
show because I know that
uh,
Zaid would have something. Oh, that would be great. That would be
Yeah.
great.
DJ Rhino's gonna be ready.
Hey, John, we definitely got to bring Charles back, brother. We got to
Yeah,
do
Absolutely,
that,
absolutely,
and we
absolutely,
got and we got to
absolutely.
bring him back when Rhino's here.
that's right.
Very true. Very true. Uh, now, question, Zaid. The next segment, we few things. Um, you got my text that
No,
there.
no, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Okay, so just as a technical issue, there are. We know that Josie is supposed to be next.
She's not.
Um,
Linda Carter is.
okay.
Linda
Um,
Carter is with 3 or 4 students.
okay, so it should probably be only two.
No,
Um,
I'll step. Let me step
because
out. Let me step out in charge. I'll step out in charge. Okay.
Okay, because
Okay.
there are limited number of slots that we have backstage, so that we so we'll need to just do that a little bit, and so Linda Carter should come in. Charles Watkins, thank you so much. Very much appreciated, and we're definitely 100% going to have you back.
Charles, you're getting a good brother-in-law. Look forward to that.
Thank you. Title of the episode:
That always happens.
Overrated.
Fair enough. Talk to you later, man.
Yep.
All right, so
so wow. Oh, that's rough. Oh man, I totally missed that. No, I'm not talking about.
Question.
The availability of spaces.
All right, so but now space is opened up. So if Linda Carter's coming on, she should come in right now.
Okay. All right. Yeah, she was trying to get on as they were wrapping up, and I'll begin the transition. We had an incredible conversation several weeks ago with Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves of the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and Grenadines, right? Might be a small space in the Caribbean, but he's one of the brightest and most outspoken Black leaders on the planet, quite frankly, right? Unabashed, and forget that, right? And was in crisis, and faced that crisis with the grace and stature that we hope emerges somewhere in
I'm
America.
just going to interrupt you just for a second, for a technical thing. Ms. Carter, there's a lot of background feed inside of your mic. If you have anything on that in terms of the broadcast, etc., or any broadcasting, make sure you turn it off.
There you go. So as she's doing that, and I was saying that we were fortunate to have that incredible conversation at a time when he was in crisis. This country was in crisis. Right. We were facing Hurricane Beryl, right? And he faced that with the grace and dignity that bespeaks who he is and what we hope we have and hope to develop and cultivate in our leaders. Josie Gonsalves and Public Square Amplified, made that connection for us, and we're forever grateful for that, right?
Absolutely.
But we did not have a chance yet to have Public Square actually come on and talk about what Public Square does. Who is Public Square, right? And Linda is one of the co-founders. Linda has been on several times doing her civics lessons that we always ask her to do, right? But we haven't had a chance even for Linda to talk about her role in co-founding this entity that is Public Square Amplified. So we're finally getting a chance to actually do that. And I'll give the short answer to what that is, but I'll let them really lift that up. This is a body that was created, a space that was created to train young journalists, right? And a space to not just train young journalists, but to give them the genuine freedom to be as politically free with how they hone their craft. Right. And that's because of the spaces that their founders come out of. They come out of very independent and radical spaces and on some of their walks. So let them finally do that. And then there's this thing coming up that I'm just learning about called Democracy Day. Very important to journalists. Right. So they have a powerful town hall coming up addressing this thing called democracy. So Linda.
Okay.
Take us to school.
That was the greatest.
I want you to clean up what I did, though, because
you did a good job. I'm just feeling because I have directions.
Tell us about Democracy Day and the students we're going to have with us.
Can you hear me?
We hear you fine.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. First of all, the greatest compliment you could give me is call me radical, like that. Anyway, just real quick, I have some background notes that I was told Josie to make sure I get done. So I want to do this so we can move on to the young people because, our whole job as elders is to prepare them to take our place. And part of that is to give them everything we have so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. And unfortunately, a lot of that is happening. We're reinventing the wheel we shouldn't have after so many generations. So on that note, just a little background. Public Square Amplifies a local nonprofit newsroom founded by 3 Black women with over 80 years of combined experience in the academic, nonprofit, journalism, and community organizing sectors. Me, along with Cassandra Etienne and Josie Gonsalves, led a team of activists, academicians, student, professional, community members, and journalists committed to expanding the spaces for voices and stories pushed to the periphery. The organization positions journalism as a civics tool, of course, because I'm involved, and creates a pipeline for a new generation of local journalists. The reporting centers on social and economic justice, racial equity and equality, the climate crisis, immigration or the immigrant experience, and covering issues impacting and concerning citizens in and surrounding our headquarters, which of course is in Newark, through an emancipatory lens. The newsroom seeks to reimagine a vibrant and radical Black press. As part of the International Democracy Day 2024, Public Square Amplified, PSA, hosts a virtual discussion on the current political paradigm with members of the Gen Z, the generation now seemingly at the center of the drive to the 2020 polls for the electoral races afoot, and not just here in New Jersey, around the country. PSA joins hundreds of newsrooms across the country, producing news reporting content for publication on democracy for Democracy Day, a nationwide pro-democracy report collaborative. So it's a nationwide. So there'll be an event, the Democracy Day 2024 Town Hall, the conversation Gen Z contextualizing the contemporary political landscape for Sunday, September 15th, 2024 from 3 to 5. And then on that note, I think I've said enough. And so we want to turn this over to the generation coming, picking up behind us. So it's Ishana, Aston, Richard, and Zoe. So they're going to basically give you a little bit about them and, talk about their priorities and then answer some questions and express the new thinking that they're going to practice for Sunday. So I know we only have 30 minutes and I was trying to keep, just a little bit. Don't you see that? Don't they look nice? Look at them.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
We're going to turn this over to whoever wants to go first.
Hi.
Okay. Is Ishana, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yeah, no, it's Shani.
Why don't you go first?
Sure. So I'm a junior in high school. I go to Edison High, which is like Central Jersey, if people believe in Central Jersey. And I've been working with Public Square Amplified for a few months now. And I'm really excited for this upcoming Gen Z panel. And I can't wait for us to discuss very important topics, specifically from our generation's point of view, whether it be climate, the recent debate, the war in Gaza, or just very other economic or educational topics.
Okay, who's going to go next? Richard.
I'll go next. Yeah. So, hi, everyone. My name is Richard. I am a first year in university, undergraduate, studying neuroscience at the University of Pennsylvania. I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, and I have done work with York Street Project, which is a social service nonprofit, and I've also worked at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And I am also very excited. I've never really been given a platform to talk openly about the issues that concern us, that concern Gen Z. Specifically, I feel like a lot of topics that we care about more are like climate change, the war in Gaza, inflation, like higher education and affordability, the Harris-Trump election and what that means for us. And I'm just super excited to have a platform to discuss those topics. And I look forward to it. So.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Richard, I'm glad you said inflation because, I've heard this from not grammar school, but high school students that are 14, 15-year-old. Inflation is a big deal to them. And, a lot of people, even older people, don't necessarily understand that inflation is connected to the demise of the unions. Because when the unions existed and were strong, our salaries kept up with the cost of living. So I'm really happy to hear that. And I've been hearing that from a lot of young people. Inflation is really on their radar. Ashton, it's your turn.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Ashton. I'm a second-year law student at Fordham here in New York. I am also an engineer in pharmaceuticals. I've studied chemical engineering in undergrad, and I've been that for about 4 years now, working on a whole bunch of different things. I like science, but I also like the law. And I think that's part of the reason why I started to become interested in politics and following what's going on with the national election, but also what's happening like in my community near me in Harlem. So that being said, excited to talk. From St. Vincent, whole family's from St. Vincent. Josie's a close family friend. So that's the connection there. And here we are. Yeah, I'm ready to speak to everyone.
So
Jonathan,
yeah, go
Jonathan, we
ahead.
have a story in the background. I don't know how to bring her forward. She's that fourth voice. And if anybody's got any background, anything going on in their background, shut that down because that generates the static that we just got. I think somebody did that. But yeah, Zoe should be in the background trying to get in. She's the fourth voice that was supposed to be joining us, right? Ashton.
Zoe's in.
There you go. She's coming. There you go. There you go.
Hi,
All right.
Zoe. All right, now it's time for you to do your thing. So tell them about you, Zoe.
My turn. So
Yes.
my name is Zoe. I'm a freshman at Brandeis University studying currently history, but it might change. And I'm a senior reporter with Public Square Amplified, and I've been working there for a little over 2 years now.
So who wants to start talking a little bit about what the game plan is for Sunday? Anybody?
Well, Linda, before you do that, let one of them break down what Democracy Day is for those of us that haven't heard it before.
That's fine. Richard?
It's radio. Y'all got to talk now.
Come on, Richard. You said you wanted to talk. Here, talk.
Hi.
There you go, Richard. There you go.
Yeah. Sorry. Feedback's a little janky over here. I'm in my dorm, so. But yeah, so Democracy Day is a platform for us to talk, or like it's basically a day where we're allowed to be as radical as we can about ideas. Like I personally, like after like the Biden administration's approach to Gaza and like other issues, this idea of like trying to satisfy both parties hasn't really garnered any kind of like effective solution. So I feel like this is a day to kind of just like say what we think and not worry too much about like any like verbal ramifications. It's just kind of like say whatever's on our mind. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that's kind of what the day means for me. So.
All right. I can't see anybody's picture. Whoever else want to go.
I can bounce off of it. Yeah, so to jump on Richard's point, I think every day at this point, like especially now, our First Amendment right is just getting attacked left and right. So Democracy Day is like a good kind of moment to ground ourselves and remember that we do have an entitlement to the right to speak freely and to oppose what our government is doing and to write about what our government is doing, despite what our government may say. And I think it's absolutely critical that we don't forget that. I'm glad we have Democracy Day as a good reminder of that, a reminder to put the public interest at the forefront of what we do, to put the community interest at the forefront of what we do, and especially as Gen Z, to remember that we're allowed to demand better of our government and we're allowed to demand better of the candidates we're given. So that's what it means for me, at least.
Linda, let me do this if I can, because what she just raised is hugely important, and that the heartbeat of what, from an ethical standpoint, what journalism is supposed to be about. So I would like to ask each of you, right? What do you see are the threats to free speech in the First Amendment as you see it yourselves now in real time on your watch? And I'd actually love for each of you to respond to that.
Yeah.
Some of you might see the same things, but we want to see the range because it's a very important discussion. And I'll add to why it's this important and as an elder after you each of you comment.
I can go first. So I think one angle that I'm approaching this from when it comes to freedom of speech. So there's obviously the very literal angle of which you can see with like universities shutting down all the protests regarding what was occurring in the genocide occurring in the Gaza Strip. And I think it's a very clear and obvious sign of our First Amendment right being attacked. But I think on a more not subconscious or more like a less obvious level, I think the way the media is portraying, the main media, the like traditional media, is portraying the current election also imposes on our kind of our free thinking and our freedom of speech, because we don't get the opportunity to take a pause and actually criticize both candidates. Because if we do, we're forced into this kind of, oh, it's either vote for one candidate or kind of go into some sort of like dystopian world, and we're not allowed to acknowledge the fact that both candidates, regardless of where we're aligned, have their drawbacks, and it is very important for us to discuss those drawbacks. And if we don't, I think we're just kind of blindly supporting a candidate, and I think that's what's being encouraged, even when what we really should be encouraged is more freedom of thought and discussion.
I really feel what Ishani is saying right now, because I think, especially with the Democratic Party today, there's real criticisms that we have as people. We want to avoid suffering in Gaza. We want to make sure the environment stays intact. And these are two examples of things that are real criticisms of both parties. And it's not like if we decide not to criticize right now during the election year, we're going to somehow find a better point once the administration is in office that's going to take the cake. So I think right now is the perfect time for us to be more critical of Democrats. We obviously do not want Trump in office again. Well, we, as I'm speaking for people who have the same opinion as me, but I'm saying we have leverage right now to be more critical, and I think that we as Democrats need to not censor each other. So I think that's kind of a threat to freedom of speech within one party.
Mm-hmm. Who hasn't gone yet on this issue? Oh, I think you good. Oh, go ahead, Richard. Mm-hmm.
So I'll speak next. Yeah, just definitely jumping off of what Ashton and Nishani are saying. I think like a lot of people our age are just blindly voting blue, and it's kind of like a less of the two evils case that a lot of people are agreeing on. I feel like a lot of us are kind of like ignoring the flaws of both parties, and in a way that kind of censors everyone, because if you say that you aren't really like you're not in favor of both, you're not going to vote for, you're not going to vote blue, or you don't like the blue candidate, then it kind of means that maybe you aren't democratic. And I feel like that label on us has been a restriction, and it kind of, again, as people said before, it prevents us to be critical, because both candidates have their flaws. And I feel like with what the media is doing, I think social media plays a large part in this as well. It's like there's like a lot of brainwashing, I feel like, and I feel like it's just really important now. And we do have the means to do so as well. I think it's incredible, like how much access to the internet allows us to form our own opinions, is to see the flaws in both people and make our own judgments based off of neutral information.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Zoe, come on in.
My turn now. So to jump on that also, I was going to start with saying that, yes, Kamala's team is completely killing it when it comes to social media, because so the way I thought about it was on two fronts. There's kind of like the blatant attacks on the First Amendment, and then there's like the subtleties, I think, that we're seeing. So like, I mean, the blatant stuff is pretty obvious. I mean, we had Kamala Harris a couple weeks ago, I think in Michigan, saying to protesters something like, just say you want Trump to win, otherwise I'm speaking, which is just so
dismissive.
Right, exactly. And
I didn't mean to put words in your mouth, but
no, you're right. Yes, it's dismissive, and it's so like blindsided to the fact that she's over here delivering a speech herself, trying to convey some kind of message, and there are other people trying to convey a message, but somehow hers is more important. But on the more subtle level, I feel like there's this big pressure to not criticize, right now. I know after the debate happened, at least for me on my campus, I mean, I was like, I had to put myself in talking jail afterwards because I like jumped the gun and started talking too soon, and I didn't give myself enough time to like sit with it. But even as soon as I started talking to some people and saying like, my God, did you hear what she was saying? My God, like what is this? Like I was getting flack for it right off the bat. Like, what do you mean? Like we can't be going against Kamala right now. Like there's not enough time to be. So my biggest concern, or one of my biggest concerns, has just been like the level of urgency that the Democratic Party is, I mean, rightfully for them, it's their campaign, pushing. Because, and I feel like we kind of had this with Biden, like it's a weird little echo of the 2020 election where it's like, look, this is the candidate, just vote for it, just vote. Because Biden started off his whole thing with, I'm going to be a transitionary president, I'm going to bring somebody up along, and by the next election cycle, you won't have to vote for me. And that didn't happen because nobody held him up to it and nobody kept criticizing. And so now we're in this, and it feels like kind of the same thing. It's a bit different, where there's just this like really silent but huge pressure to not criticize, because there's this idea that we don't have enough time to be critical right now because there's Project 2025 out there. There's all these looming boogeymans out there that there's no time to be critical right now because we're so close to the election.
A question on that.
You got to jump in, Jonathan. Absolutely. Come on.
Yeah,
come
like,
on.
is there a difference between, like, as I said, like, I'm a debate coach, and is there a difference between criticizing your opinion and like saying, hey, look, you're saying that there's a lesser of two evils, but here's why we need to support Harris now. Trump is uniquely like horrible, travels as a white supremacist. Like, if you're really talking about issue after issue, like Harris is like there needs to be a ceasefire, even though I don't like a lot of her politics leading up to it. The other side is like the moderate who was running on the Republican primary was like Palestinians need to go to a Hamas friendly nation, like they just need to leave, and that was like mainstream Republicans. Isn't politics the always about choosing who you fight? As in, like, we can be critical, but also recognize that this is the person I'm going to fight as opposed to this other person I'm going to fight. Isn't it all about the utilization of our speech?
For me, by fight, what's an example of a fight? Just so I can.
Oh, every time you're doing levels of activism and protesting and saying that like who you hold accountable, right? Like I don't imagine protests will end if Harris is elected. I don't imagine that like the interest. I think someone's background is up. I don't imagine that these things won't like and leverage, right? Like running your own candidates, running people against them in the primaries, right? Like making sure like I thought I thought one of the most powerful things in this election cycle was the undecided votes in the primaries and how that impacted things, right? Because I don't think Harris would have even made the statement that she made and tried to do this whole like tightrope walking game had it not been for being scared about Michigan and being scared about the undecided votes or uncommitted votes that were there.
I think that's interesting. Like the thing about like, yeah, we can criticize and at the same time still support the candidate, and it's about how we utilize our voice. But I think the issue, I think what we have right now is a really unique situation because in a sense, there is an urgency because the Harris was chosen so late in the game as opposed to like other candidates. So it kind of the way they're running the campaign, it feels like, oh, we have a short amount of time to gain all the support. I think on social media we talk a lot, like the Republican side often like criticizes saying that, oh, like 6 weeks ago, like no one liked her, and then suddenly she's everyone's favorite candidate. She's everyone's favorite person. And I mean, while it's not wholly true, it has like a grain of truth to it that the campaign worked so quickly to make her into this like perfect idol for everyone to throw her support to, because that's what they need her to be to win the election. Because Biden was not winning the approval, was not going to win, so they needed someone who they could immediately get the youth behind her, get the different identity groups behind her. I think because they are so hinged on this complete and utter love for Kamala, they're not really allowing for criticism.
Is it a love for Kamala as much as it is a recognition of like Trump is not a normal Republican? Like I don't know whether like does that play into it, right? Like because I remember like previous elections in terms of Republican candidates, and when people were making the argument, there's no difference between the Democrat and the Republican, that was true, right? Like as in there wasn't really much of a difference between Gore and Bush. There wasn't much of a difference between Bush and Kerry. There, like even though Obama presented himself as being different in that he didn't support the war in Iraq, there was limited difference between him and McCain, right? McCain was a liberal Republican. It wasn't a scary thing. Romney and Obama were very, very similar. They were just different on the courts, right? So you had to issue the court, and that's it. Trump seems to be a different kind of animal, right? Like, as in, and I think maybe what you might be getting is an acknowledgement that Trump actually is uniquely dangerous, or do you think that's just hype? Like, do you think that he's just a Republican, or do you think that the way he has been, the people he surrounds himself with, whether it be like blatant white supremacist from the first term to even more fringy, like one of the people who is in their camp was so cringy that Marjorie Taylor Greene was like, you need to calm down. And that's the person who's writing to the debate with him, the person who he's with. Do you think that do you think that that makes it a unique difference or that urgency?
I don't mind answering this one. I think that Trump is uniquely dangerous. I think before him, we didn't have as much of a deregulation platform in the Republican Party as we do now. Before COVID, he gutted the pandemic response team that the White House had ready from the previous administration. And towards the end of his term, there was a plan for Schedule F appointments, which would change civil servants who are supposed to serve in kind of a nonpartisan manner, but could affect policy decisions, to make those easily fireable by the executive. So I think I hadn't heard of that in my, I guess, short 26 years of life, but the idea that the person in the EPA who tests for water quality can be fireable by the president whenever they want to, for probably maybe not complying with the regulation that the president wants at the time. And I think as a person with the science background, I'm thinking, well, the way that I know I do my job and the people who I work with is we lead with the science. And to think that there's these real expert positions that we need people who have qualifications for that could be removed pretty easily by the president would mean that they're kind of beholden to him. So I think from my perspective of not having experienced a bunch of other Republican presidents besides Bush, I would say this looks uniquely dangerous to me.
Yeah, I just jumping off of that, I definitely agree with the stance that Trump is uniquely dangerous. I think, like, I haven't really been through many terms. I was born in 2005, but just the way he is able to rally his party, definitely, like, the insurrection was never an event that I've ever seen in my life before. It's actually, like, insane to kind of believe that actually happened. And I do feel like he, like, definitely towards the end of his term, he definitely tried to issue like a travel ban policy on like Muslim dominant countries. He threatened to revoke the visas of foreign students who he deemed as, I guess, like anti-Semitic or anti-American. He definitely expressed sentiments to finish the job in Gaza if he is reelected again. And again, I feel like that reinforces his white supremacist ideology, and that is a very, very terrifying truth to grapple with. So I do feel like he is very dangerous. And like, that's not, I haven't even mentioned all of like the environmental stuff that he's doing or that he is sanctioning with Project 2025. So
I have two questions, unless you guys want to answer. Go ahead, Zoe. You want to answer? Then I have two quick questions.
I was going to say quickly, I think Richard kind of touched on it. I was going to say that I think Trump himself is less dangerous than his support, because Trump is just a man. Like everyone else is just a person. And he's somebody who has his own psychology and has gone back on his own policies multiple times and has been so inconsistent. But the fact that there is a sweeping majority of people who can hear him say, look, just come out and vote for me this one last time and you'll never have to go out and vote again. The fact that there are so many people who can hear that and are still willing to probably show up to the polls 48 hours in advance and camp out in front of them, that's what's scary to me. So like what Trump stands for is certainly scary, but I think what's scarier to me is the fact that there are so many people who hear what he says and aren't alarmed by it, or aren't even just alarmed by it, but support it like fully. And so I was going to say, I feel like it's a bit not paradoxical to be talking about it like this, because I feel like when we do talk about it like this, we kind of start putting ourselves into the same position as a lot of other people, where it's like, well, yeah, we have to vote against anything that's not Trump because this is what Trump is and this is what Trump stands for. But to Jonathan, your question earlier, the way I kind of interpreted it was as like, we're in this weird contradiction where we have to be critical, but we have to remember that we're in a duopoly, that we're in a situation where there are two major parties, and you're in a pretty small select group of people if you're willing to come out against the government and come out against the government publicly still, which ties into that like subtle pressure.
I always thought that there were different types of undecided voters in an election like this. They're the undecided who like I think there's an infinitesimally small undecided in terms of should I vote for Trump or Harris, right? I think that's really, really tiny. I think the bigger undecided is should I vote or should I stay home? And I think that becomes the debate I think maybe you're having, right? Like, should I vote or should I stay home? Because y'all are undecided voters, right? Or many of you, right? Like the generation that has this conflict and conversation. I think that the undecided voters who will decide the election, it's not between will I vote for Trump or Harris, it's will I vote or stay home. And what is your reaction to that?
I can definitely see the sentiment behind that. I know there's an uncommitted movement going on as a retaliation to both parties, but I feel like it would be a waste for me to forfeit my right to vote. I feel like, again, I don't want to sacrifice that. I feel like while both candidates do have their flaws, I definitely feel like there is one who is willing to go to more extremes and be less compliant with the issues I care about from a humanitarian lens. So I feel like every single, like, if you can, you should definitely exercise your right to vote. I think staying home would kind of like, it wouldn't really, I don't feel like it would accomplish anything at this stage of the election. I feel like we need to rally behind who we believe will be more receptive to our criticisms and implement them. So I don't think people should stay home at all.
I was going to add that so far, the statistics that I've seen have been promising regarding my generation. I mean, I can't quote exacts right now, but just like out of the work that I've had to do with Public Square and all of the statistics I've had to read for that, a lot of them have indicated that our generation compared to previous generations at our age are much more politically active, much more politically in tune, and also in general more aware of the importance of like our political responsibility, our civic responsibility of voting. That was my 2 cents. Just that the statistics so far do seem promising in terms of our generation, but of course, nothing's going to be certain until we reach election day.
Anybody want to say something before I ask the questions?
Yeah, something else I'll say is that when Kamala entered the race, my friends and people close to me, energized. Like before, we were getting like, I guess we'll go vote in November, and I guess we'll just give it to Joey. But there's been enthusiasm to organize, to donate to the Kamala's campaign, and I think the organization enthusiasm is what surprised me the most, because it was people who I feel like people in early mid-20s, we are just running around doing too many things at once. And to think that organizing to get voter turnout higher is one thing that we want to do isn't what I would expect, but it really is. In terms of just who's around me, anecdotally, that's just what I've been seeing.
Okay, unless someone else is, I just wanted to say a couple of things real quick. Zoe, I beg to differ to one thing. I was protesting Vietnam at 12.
You are a special case.
I was protesting because I had elders, 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds returning from Vietnam who educated me. That was one. But in terms of, just to get back to Democracy Day and what democracy is supposed to be about, do you think, and all of you to answer, do you think that the public not knowing the difference between the role of media and the role of press, the role of media being to advertise, commercials, public relations, propaganda, spin, and the role of the press to educate the public so that people know that they're, the other branches of government, except for the people, because that is technically a component of this government, the people. But if they don't know, that becomes a problem. So people not knowing the difference between media and the press. And the other thing, not knowing the difference between a leader and an elected official. I just had a conversation right before I got here, and I jumped out of the car and ran here so I could be here with you guys. And I had a conversation about people not understanding that leaders are people willing to die for you. And we haven't had a lot of elected officials, and not in your lives, who are willing to die. The only elected official I can think of that you may or may not know would be Adam Clayton Powell, maybe Shirley Chisholm, maybe Harold Washington, who Barack Obama used to be hanging around. But I can't think of any elected official willing to die on behalf of their constituency, because that's what a leader is. Elected officials go with whoever puts the pressure on them. And so I'm asking you guys, to react to that. All four of you.
And then I show up. I'm that official.
I want to start with Richard, if that's okay, and then Ashton, and then Shani. I don't want to mess up your name, and then Zoe. Go ahead.
Right. So, I think that we haven't really, I feel like a lot of, at least with Biden's example, I feel like he was trying to please both sides. I feel like he was, a very passive leader. So I say leader in quotes because, again, I do agree with what you said about a leader being willing to die for their people. And I feel like Biden, a part of the reason why he failed as that transitory president, trying to raise his new pupil, failed in that way because, again, he was very passive, and I feel like he wasn't willing to take any risks or put forth his democracy. And that to me does not read as a leader. He did not risk enough, in my opinion. And for that, I feel like I can classify him comfortably as an elected official. And in terms of Kamala, I don't know where I stand with her yet. I feel like her team has very good PR, but that might just be the extent to it. I still have to kind of ponder what the merit or what the substance of her policies are still. So that's just kind of what I'm thinking.
I think I can talk to the. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The media and the press thing. I think the difference between entertainment and what's educational is important. I think that there's times I'm watching CNN and I'm thinking this is really just a show. It's not informing me. It's really kind of entertaining me. And I still watch it because I like being entertained, because I'm human. But I think there's a work that's involved in like learning, and I think it is troubling if we have a public that isn't aware of the difference between being educated and entertained. And I think it's kind of a drag to say you need to go research these issues and know what's going on. But we also have complaints like inflation is too much. Because I started working in the past 4 years, and I'm like, this can't be what they're taking from my paycheck and what I'm left with. That was the first year I was working. That was 2020. And I think that's why I'm looking at and trying to learn, okay, well, what is the Fed? Why did they set the inflation rate at that? But that's not the typical person, because who has time to be doing that? So it's difficult, I think, but we have to bring messages to people in our community as I think where I end up with that.
Next.
Yeah, I think Ashton made a great point at the end where he was like, who has the time to be doing all that? Because for the average Gen Z member, they're just going on Instagram, TikTok, like Twitter, and they're just seeing what's on their feed. And most of that is entertainment. Most of that, I know, like, for example, like a lot of Kamala's campaign has been tied to like Brat Summer, and which is really fun. It's a great PR strategy. I think it's really, it's really pushing like the whole like women like feminism agenda, but there's not much substance. And then Trump himself is like a whole entertainer. I think like a lot of the comments he says are quite outlandish, and then everyone just laughing at the screen, and it just feels like a big whole circus. But that's not really helpful when it comes to actually voting for the future of our country. And I think one thing that was very interesting, what you said about the like elected official versus a leader, and I think like I know Richard was talking about Kamala and like how he's not sure about what will lead in the future. And of course, I think we can't really predict until we give someone a chance. But what I find kind of disappointing or like nervous leading into this is the fact that like a lot of the times she herself is not very like consistent on her policy. For example, in 2019, she supported like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren type like bans on fracking, and then in the debate like 2 days ago, she was talking about how she's actually pro fracking, she's pro traditional fossil fuel, which I mean, regardless of where you stand on environmental issues, and I stand against it, it's the fact that if you can't stay consistent on some policy, that means it's not a policy that you believe in whatever is going to buy you votes. So I think that's very disappointing, and that's one thing I'd be wary of going into the next 4 years.
Have you been paying attention to the amount of billionaires that are supporting both candidates?
Yeah.
Professor, can I make a statement?
Wait, one more. Zoe's going to make a comment.
Oh, I thought Zoe spoke. I thought she spoke. I'm sorry.
It's okay. What your question reminded me of was, well, the biggest thing that I thought of was the fact when it comes to media and news is that most news sources now are also on social media. And when it comes to like libel laws and stuff like that, generally like the rules for when you're printing on paper or when you're printing on an actual news site are different from when you're presenting on TV or on some kind of like like filmed thing. I can't quote specifics, but generally it's to my understanding that when it comes to like broadcasted news, it's generally regarded by the law even as more so entertainment than it is actual news, and it's not held to the same standard as actual news. And while I do think our generation is very well read, I do think that media literacy is like a very big gap in that, and that we're not able to recognize that difference between when something is produced for entertainment value, when something is not produced for entertainment value, or when something is produced for entertainment value and attempted to be passed off as something else. Mm-hmm. So I think that like as things get meshed together more and more, it's harder to like ascertain the difference. So I think more media literacy training is definitely needed, especially not even just for our generation, but for the even younger generation, the one under us now, Gen Alpha. They are a completely different ballgame from us when it comes to media literacy. And as for the leader versus elected official component, I do think you raised an interesting point that our generation has never been exposed to real leadership in that sense, because I feel like it's a bit hard for me to have any kind of point of reference that I can think to in my own experience of what real leadership looks like, at least within American government. So I feel like we have to, or at least for me, approach this election in terms of what each candidate is offering and what each candidate is attempting to pursue, and to what extent, if they're not going to, die for their people, to what extent they're still going to put them at the front of their mind.
Thank you.
Professor Carter, may I make a
Yes.
statement?
Yes.
So Zoe and the rest of the students on the panel, I had the opportunity to serve as an elected official for 12 years. The name of our radio show is All Politics Are Local. So right now in your room, 4 years starts in January. What is it that whomever is elected that you need from them? Because we elect and then we hold accountable. I want you to always remember that election season is just that. It's a season. It starts and it finishes once the election is complete. After I raise my hand, I have a job to serve everybody in all of my constituents. So it's very different from art. It gets real once I raise my hand. The person who voted for me and the person who did not vote for me and the person who didn't vote, I have to work for them as if everybody voted for them. So while it seems not sincere, real media or whatever, I will tell you, once you raise your hand, you sit in that seat, and as a legislator, you begin to work on behalf of the people. You have to work. It's no longer campaign season. You have a job to do. And I got reelected twice. So then I become an elected official who's running while working. So it becomes, it builds on. So always remember, election season is like a 4 to 3 month, but it's a 4 year, in my case, job, or 2 year in some, 4 year in the president. So you're wherever towns you're in, go visit City Hall and watch a council meeting and look at it local. That's the person who tell you what time you can put your garbage out. If it's out a half an hour earlier, you're going to get a ticket. So start there and begin to, see how it works up from your local level all the way to the federal government. Okay, it really is work. It's not for play. Thank you. And thank you for being here. And thank you for taking the time to share what you're seeing. But just please keep that in mind. Thank you, Professor Carter.
Thank you.
And thank you.
As we wind down, let me just say this too. First, I'm very proud of every one of you. And I want you to be proud of your teachers in the space that they created for you. But I want to say this also, and this is something that I used to do on the streets, and we used to shut down the streets in New York City over some of the things that I used to deal with when I used to run a new Black Panther Party. I want to apologize to you. I want to apologize to you that you are in a world that has so much undue pressure on your generation. I never dreamed that I would see Roe v. Wade overturned. Ladies, I'm really, really I'm sorry that the world that I came from that made Roe could not hold the line. I apologize to you that you have all this pressure. You're looking at a genocide in real terms, and we're told to shut up about it. That is unprincipled as all get out. Do not shut up about genocide in your face, because it'll come back and bite all of us and take us all out. That's how genocide gets down, right? And in this country, in both countries involved, have the history and the capacity to do that, right? But the fact that this weight is on you, don't sit it out, honor it, and stay firm on your principles. Let no one mess with your principles, right? There's a journalist who's in prison, who's a dear friend and comrade of mine, by the name of Mumia Abu Jamal. 42 years in prison. They want him to die in prison, right? Who taught a lot to my generation and his generation. And like Ashani started rolling when he was in high school for the Black Party, right? So you have shoulders to stand on that are quite courageous. And I want you to know that this is a safe space that you're welcome to. And when you need to come back and get here, come let us know. And the drum is available for you to sound, right?
And I would just add that the Uhuru 3, the Uhuru 3 to the Uhuru 3 were somewhat successful because their whole argument was about the First Amendment. And, you know, if you get a chance,
real.
Yeah, their whole argument is the First Amendment, and they just happen to have attorney pro bono. That was his specialty, the First Amendment. And I had heard some of his potential argument. So check him out because they were, matter of fact, probably in the last, I don't know how many years, they were successful because Julian Assange, he had to cop to something. So, you know, they were successful.
Too. That's right.
So check them out, the Uhuru 3.
Zaid, can I throw in one thing?
Sure.
I wanted to say, I know I mentioned those statistics earlier, but a bigger thing is, I'm pretty sure it was mainly your generation that raised a lot of Gen Z. So there's a lot of parallels in the way that we think in terms of activism and stuff like that, and it definitely gets translated down. So Linda, I was not trying to throw a dig at you. I was just talking about what I saw on Tubbs. But no, like I was raised by Gen X. I think a lot of Gen Z was raised by Gen X, and there's definitely a ton of parallels in the way we see activism. And I can speak for myself and I can speak for a lot of my generation that we're very grateful for the work that you guys have done and the shoulders that you've lifted us up on top of.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate it.
Your granddaughter.
Thank you.
Your grandfather.
Take care.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
So,
Be well, everybody.
We got Amber ready to go.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Stuart. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Now, that's a sin and a shame that's the youngest set of guests that we had and didn't get a chance to ask them the ritual question. I don't know who
true.
For that.
True.
Move fast, but slow down. Thank you for being here, Amber.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry we had to bring that conversation to a close. It was so
I appreciate your patience, Amber, because I mean, you're carrying a lot. We all, those of us, Amber and I work on some stuff that is heavy, right? We got a real heavy case right now, and Amber has done some incredible organizing with the space that she's in the community that sorely needed her presence and her particular kind of organizing presence. And so there's a lot we want to cover when we want to touch on the case of Victoria Lee. So I want to, Amber Reed, Asian American and Pacific Islanders of New Jersey, welcome to All Politics and Local. I know this is your first time here. It won't be your last. There's so much we want to talk about with Victoria. First, I think the basic place for you to start off with is to give us some broader background of the work of AAPI, right? Because it's good work. And I want to make sure that we talk about where you see the work as it is, where you see the work should be going. We want to lift up your 6 demands with the pressure you're putting on your local city council. This is all politics or local, right? And the fact that you've got a schedule of public events coming up to keep the conversation moving and fresh. Let's make sure we get all of that. So I'll step back and let you jump in.
Thank you so much, Zaid, and thank you, Donna and Jonathan, for having me here tonight to talk about this. Let me first just talk about what happened to Victoria Lee. She was a young woman, 25 years old, living with her brother in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Had a history of bipolar episodes. July 28th, about 1 a.m, she woke up and she was upset. She was experiencing an episode, banging her head against the wall. Her mother and brother were concerned for her harming herself. So they called 911 so that an ambulance could come and help take her to a hospital where she had received treatment before. Instead of an ambulance, they had police arrive at their door, the Fort Lee police. Victoria's brother had told 911 that after his first call, she had picked up a small knife, a small folding knife that she used to open packages. She was holding it. She was not threatening her brother or her mother, but he asked if he could cancel the ambulance. The dispatcher said no. He wanted the police officers who were coming, the EMTs who he hoped were coming, to understand she wasn't a threat. The family had watched videos of police killings of people in mental health crises, so they were well aware of this risk and they were trying to keep her safe. When the police arrived without the EMTs, the brother, Christopher, went and met them to talk to them about what was happening behind the door. The mother was calling out from behind the door. She was with Victoria, trying to calm her down, asking them not to come in, to give her time to calm her down, because they said that in the interim, Victoria had calmed down. But as anyone can see in that body cam footage, the police banged on the door. They said, open it up or we'll break it down. Drop the knife, where's the knife? And then in a very short period of time, under a couple of minutes, really, they decided to go in with lethal force, as well as there were some officers with tasers out. They opened the door. Victoria had a water bottle in her hand, like a big Poland spring.
Water bottle in her hand.
A water bottle. She was not a huge person. She was like me. She was a petite Asian woman. Had a water bottle. She was upset. She did shout some things at them. She was experiencing a mental health crisis, but you can see in that body cam footage, the door opens. She moves toward them with a water bottle, and Officer Tony Pickens fires into her chest, and she falls down. And it's just, you hear her mother in Korean telling her it will be all right. You see her, you hear her saying that it hurts and that she can't breathe. And the police carry her away by her arms and legs. You never see EMTs in that video. And she died at the hospital a very short time after. Her mother and brother, instead of being taken to the hospital with her, say that they were taken to the police station for hours of questioning. They did not know what had happened to her. They were not able to be with her when she passed. And they are seeking justice for her. And they are so courageous in speaking out about the underlying issues here, about how our emergency services answer calls for people who are experiencing mental health crises, use of lethal force, treatment of families in an incident like this. There's a lot to unpack. And our organization, Asian American Pacific Islanders of New Jersey, was formed a few years ago in the aftermath of a really horrific hate crime, the Atlanta spa shootings, to make some change for Asian Americans in New Jersey, who, despite our numbers, our growing numbers, really haven't had much of a voice in our state's sort of decision-making spaces. And we have been working to support the Lee family and to help bring this community together in Fort Lee and Bergen County, because people's sense of safety has been totally shattered, of course. And it's been over a month since the shooting, and they still haven't really gotten any answers about what has happened, or about what the Fort Lee Police Department, mayor, council will do to keep this community safe, because people are scared to call 911 now. We have elders asking if the police hate Koreans now. There's just so much fear, and it feels like the powers that be are in.
I'm sorry, Victoria. Can I ask a question? Yeah, because 911 dispatches to sell things. I know for me, if I'm home and I have an emergency, I call my local police station and talk to my local dispatcher. Is that something you can get out? The Fort Lee's direct number to the police station, like in Orange, is 973-266-411. 1 and then press 0 and it goes right to the dispatcher. If you guys can find that number directly, you'll have a better conversation and maybe even calling the doctor and letting the doctor send, because, just thinking ahead that it sounds like they handle like a domestic instead of a mental health crisis. That's just a thought.
Well, Donna, let me say this, and I'm going to pivot to a space that I'm encouraging her community to move towards. Right, one of there are several modalities at which they are supposed to be developed to address this question. From the state, meaning the Attorney General, is supposed to be Arrive Together. And all they show statistics where Arrive Together has been piloted and put into play. It has been reasonably effective. But the fact is, it's not readily available other than those few spaces where it's been piloted. Right?
And when you say Arrive Together, I'm not just saying when you say Arrive Together, you mean fire, police, and EMT, right?
No, Arrive Together is a police-led emergency response team that includes mental health specialists. It's a co-model, but it's still police-led, right? We are advocating for, when we have it, the governor signed it, the Seabrooks Washington bill, which calls for community-led emergency response teams, right? In this case, and there's several other cases, including the 2 cases that the bill was named after, Najee Seabrooks and Andrew Washington. Those are classic, all those are classic examples of situations where folks knew in advance and everyone who was involved knew that the police was not the answer to the question, right? And there was history in each case that amplified that, right? Now, to your point, one of the things that has to happen with the implementation of either of these modalities is a total retraining of police culture and our call centers, right? And we do have some models in several other cities, and that's one of the first places that you have to touch, because if the call goes wrong, the scene is going to go wrong, right? The classic example I can think of very quickly, Major Gouliadale III from your own Orange, New Jersey, lifelong vet in a mental health crisis on the 4th of July. The call went, black man with a gun. Not the major is having a crisis. We need to send our support team out to help him. Black man with a gun, he was gone in 12 seconds. 12 seconds. But that started with a bad call. So there's no easy fixes to this. There's some broad, organic kind of things that need to happen structurally within all the arms of this institution to make sure that these changes are made. And the point that I made the last time that I was in Fort Lee, and Amber, bear witness to what I'm saying, is that it's just incredible to think that at this late date, 2024, 25 years into the 21st century, in the richest country in the world, that this country has not figured out a civil way to treat people in a mental health crisis. It's crazy to think about it. That we're not there yet.
We're way behind.
Yeah, but the but is that from these crises, those folks who have exhibited resilience, like an Amber, like the family, like Drew Washington's family, they just observed his anniversary just 2 weeks ago, in a very public and demonstrative way, right? We are creating the climate politically to make that happen. Now, what needs to happen, we just got finished talking to these young people about politicians that have some principle and do not have principle. They need to have the political will to stand up to police unions who block and blunt any meaningful structural change that needs to happen.
Absolutely. And Amber,
continue to lay that out so that's real clear, so we're clear on what we're fighting for. Now, Amber, now you
I just want to say, Amber, I'm sorry for your loss, and I did see the
the news, and it was horrible. So thank you for bringing us to light of day to all of our communities. So
Now, Amber, one of the things that you have done now, this is not the first time we were in Fort Lee, right? We had some other cases in Fort Lee, right? But this particular case, and by virtue of the organizing that you've done, has moved the needle in terms of the political environment in that community. Now, you've had meetings with the city council and the mayor, and there are going to be more. You've met with Andy Kim, who is likely to be the first Korean American senator in the country, straight out of Jersey, right? I want us to press him to be a co-sponsor as Senator Kim to the George Floyd bill that John Lewis and took to his grave, that should have been passed, pardon me, 3 years ago before he died, right? But so there's some very specific places that you're trying to get to locally. How is that happening, and what's in play on the ground in Fort Lee?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. And first, I also want to acknowledge how indebted we are to people like you, Saeed, who have been carrying this work for years and years, and who have had to respond and be there for families and police killing after police killing. I can't even express how moved the entire Fort Lee community, Asian American community, is by seeing organizers from New Jersey Communities for Accountable Policing, from Black Lives Matter Patterson, Faith in New Jersey, the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, the ACLU, so many others. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone I should really remember, but for them to see people like that showing up from the very beginning of the response to this and offering all of their wisdom and all of their expertise about how we find a way forward from this has been huge and has put this on a different trajectory than I think it might have been on otherwise. So just profound thanks for that from the start. This work absolutely needs to be multiracial. It should never have been shouldered primarily by one community. And unfortunately, it did take this tragedy to sort of awaken, me even as the leader of an Asian American advocacy organization, to the need for Asian Americans to be involved in work on crisis response, on mental health, on police accountability and transparency. And I think that's an awakening that we're seeing bit by bit, especially the longer the local leaders really try to stay silent and put up this sort of blue wall of silence around this incident. People are getting really upset. And so we're just trying to harness those energies and use whatever relationships we can to draw attention to this, because, time is really working against us, and it's working for the people who would love for this to just fade away, right? So we are trying to be fairly strategic. We are going to whoever will talk to us about it, right? Whoever might have something to add, from the federal level to the state level to the very local level.
The body cam footage was released, and it seems like it was egregious, as in like you can't watch it and be like, that was a reasonable, use of force. But yet there's been silence, no official response from the mayor of Fort Lee.
To be clear, the mayor did release a statement in which he expressed condolences to the family of what he called the decedent. He didn't name Victoria, but also encouraged people to think about what the police officers involved were going through, and talked about extenuating circumstances. It seems hard for him to identify with the family or Victoria rather than with law enforcement. And I understand that's where his positionality on that, but it didn't make this community feel like their concerns were being taken seriously. And the fact that the officer who shot her has not been removed to administrative duty. He's on voluntary medical leave right now. He could come back at any time. The other officers on the scene who helped to escalate that situation, as far as we know, are still on active duty. There's been no information shared about how Fort Lee police officers are trained on de-escalation, on how Fort Lee PD will work with mental health professionals going forward to respond in a 21st century way to mental health crises. Nothing. There's been almost nothing except condolences. And the mayor showing up at one rally and not even saying her name. So they haven't really met with us. We've gone to them. We went to their last council meeting. We'll continue to show up at their council meetings. Asian Americans are 40%, almost half of Fort Lee. Only 10% of the police force, though, don't hold the political power really in proportion to our numbers. And so,
which I suspect is about to change.
How about that?
I hope
That's
so.
right.
The ingredients are there.
That's right.
On the clean house, baby.
You have to find a person to be a candidate. But how's the family doing?
I mean, as a mother, I think it must be unbearable. But they went through a period where, of course, they just needed to grieve. They just needed privacy. I think they were in shock. Now they
and this
really
just happened
are.
1 month ago.
Just a month
July
ago.
28th.
But I do see them
Same
now.
day we'll be shutting down the country over Sonia Massey. You can't make this up.
The same day you had a rally in Newark for Sonia Massey. That was the night that Victoria Lee was killed by Fort Lee police. So we didn't learn that until later. But they're concerned about the progress of the investigation. They have various reasons for that concern, and they really they don't want this to be something that kind of gets swept under the rug. And they're trying to understand what their options are and who they should be asking for help. So
have you asked for a meeting with Senator Timberlake, who authored the language about a police-involved shooting?
No, but we'll reach out to her.
Okay.
We're just starting meetings with legislators about policy responses.
And one of the things, Jonathan, just quickly to sharpen Donna's suggestion, is that Senator Timberlake is a fresh person in the assembly, championed the independent prosecutors bill. And one of the dimensions of the bill is that when there's a police-involved shooting, the officers involved are supposed to be taken off duty until an investigation is complete. So anybody on duty, that's in violation of that law. And one of New Jersey's legislative weaknesses is that we have laws that are meant to do certain things that are often go unenforced because those laws hold certain entities accountable that are not used to being held accountable.
Right. And Zaida, on that note, I was thinking, shouldn't an independent prosecutor law already have kicked in with this shooting, specifically because she was unarmed?
Should have. We had the situation just a little. Well,
the specifics is because it's a police-involved shooting.
Right.
That's the specifics.
Exactly. Right. We just had this situation with Bernard Placide in Bergen County, in Inglewood, just minutes away from Fort Lee. Right, young man literally reaving after being tasered and totally helpless. The officer not only shot him and left the scene, but was promoted. The other officer was involved, is actually building up more complaints from the same community. And unfortunately, the person responsible for accountability and oversight in these matters, the Attorney General, right, has gone soft on these, right? So there's, the local pressure is important, but we need to also be clear about the pressure that needs to be applied as we move up the ladder in terms of official accountability. So with that, and now I'm doing more talking than you should be doing talking. Tell us about the 6 demands that you have locally and the actions that you have coming up so we can help get the word out for that.
Sure. So we did send 6 demands just focused on the immediate needs of the Fort Lee community for safety. One is about the status of the officers, assurance that they've at least been placed on administrative leave not even asking for them to be fired. We just want them off the streets while this is investigated. I think that's the minimum this police department could do. We want to understand Fort Lee Police Department protocols around medical assistance and transportation after officer-involved shootings, because the family never saw Victoria receive any medical care beyond what the police sort of hastily offered after shooting her. They never saw an ambulance at the scene. They really want to understand what happened. And I think the community wants to understand what they should expect if they also have the misfortune of being shot by the police when they ask for help. Can they expect to be transported by ambulance to a hospital, or should they expect to be carried out, by their arms and legs by police? We would like to understand
And should family not be allowed to even see them? Because I think that is so egregious.
It's egregious. It feels utterly dehumanizing. And I think that's sort of what underlies the whole shattering of people's sense of security and their sort of sense of belonging in Fort Lee. So along similar lines, we want to understand the Fort Lee Police Department's protocols over how they treat family members in the aftermath of a shooting, because as I said, Victoria's mother and brother were not able to be with Victoria in her last moments. We'd like information. Number 4, we'd like information on whether the Fort Lee Police Department officers have completed the required trainings on de-escalation. We'd like information on how Fort Lee enforces the guidance that's given by the Attorney General's office in terms of de-escalating situations like this. Similarly, we'd like information on how they're implementing the new barricaded individuals policy that will require police to come with mental health responders when responding to a mental health crisis. And then, number 6, and maybe the biggest one, is we'd like to hear a comprehensive long-term strategy for Fort Lee to get to a place where you have a community-led crisis response rather than police officers showing up when all you need is a mental health professional who can help you get the care you need.
And those are very modest, common sense demands.
Right.
Very basic, very clear, fundamental stuff. Nothing radical and crazy like I am, right?
Yeah, and I think that they
Go ahead,
it seems like in Fort Lee they might have underestimated what they were doing, because if there's 40% population of a city that has just been shaken up, disrespected, maybe even woken up to the need for political power, the need to challenge institutions, the need to belong to those institutions, the need for coalitions that are with people who go through similar things, right? I think that they may have made they may have been making some miscalculations, because it seems like there's a real righteous anger that is appropriate and needs to be directed in a way where one way or another people lose their jobs, right? Like, and when is the next election for mayor and council?
I think they rotate. There are 2 council seats on the ballot for November, and then I imagine the other seats sort of in future cycles will be on the ballot.
So they moved to the general election. Okay.
Yeah.
So there might be something have you gotten your ballot for November yet?
I haven't received it in the mail yet.
Yeah, we got to pay attention to down ballot in Fort Lee.
Yeah.
Okay.
And well, are there other events? Is there things that are going to go on? Are there a series of what is the next event in this particular? What is the next event planned?
So we'll have some smaller actions in the next few weeks. We'll try to show up at the next council meeting again and be there for public comment, as we were at the last meeting after our rally last week. We will have a virtual briefing for the community so they just understand what's going on with the investigation, what we know, don't know, who holds the power to change different things. But we are also planning a bigger action, probably a rally on October 12th, which would have been Victoria's 26th birthday. We'll play some of her music, make sure she's seen as a person beyond what's seen in that body cam footage, because she was a beloved daughter, sister, bright future ahead of her, loved music, wrote songs for her friends. We want people to know that about her too. So October 12th, please mark your calendars and plan to come out to Fort Lee with us.
It's a great day to make some joyful noise, because that's the day we got to get rid of the genocidal monstrosity of American history that is Christopher Columbus. That's a whole nother conversation.
I just did a check. The mayoral election was in 2023, so they're going to be sworn in probably now, and then the next one will probably be 2025. Yeah. So you got to get ready in 24.
And we had an encounter with Mr. Mayor over the situation with Keelan and Scott and his wife. Right, we had to sit down with the mayor, and he just couldn't wrap his head around certain things when it came to police accountability. He couldn't handle it. He just couldn't handle it. He sat there and listened to us, but he just the idea was just how do you do that?
Right, where I think that
it's not supposed to be hard.
At every gathering, there should be voter registration forms, and as in because at a certain point it's going to become beyond the niceties or pleasantries of conversation, because they're not. It seems like you have a situation where they don't want to get it, and they're not going to get it unless they have to get it. They're not going to give you justice. It's got to be taken. They're not going to. It just does not seem like they're at the point where the statement that is released is, when someone's been murdered who's unarmed and suffering from a mental health crisis, look at it from the perspective of the armed police who have body armor, training, guns, tasers. Even the audacity of that type of thinking is something that you have to live in your own world for that to make sense. So for it to make sense that, and there has to be some level. I don't know how there's not a level of dehumanization that's involved when you are more concerned with the healthy person who is armed with a gun, training, body armor, other types of weapons than you are for the family of someone who was murdered with a bottle in their hands, when there are all these protocols for how to deal with people who are in a mental health crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, I think
you were saying.
Saying we saw the voter registration forms at the event for Drew Washington, and it was like a light bulb went off. But this is directly connected to this community's sort of lack of power, not just what happened and the total dehumanization that the family experienced, but the sort of ongoing dehumanization where we have to sit there in the council chambers that our tax dollars fund and hear the mayor of this town say, think about what the officers and their families are going through. Think about the extenuating circumstances that were at work here, with Victoria's mother sitting right in front of him. And I don't, right now we are focused on supporting the Lee family, on justice for Victoria, but I think it's possible we will also see this sort of bigger awakening about what it means to hold power or not hold power, and what we have to do to get it.
Right. Absolutely. I know that we have reached the.
We are not letting her go without hearing who her hip hop artist is. She's out there doing the work. She needs some feel good music. Who are you listening to? Hip hop.
I'm not going to win prizes for originality, but Cowboy Carter. That's what I'm listening to, right? Yeah.
Oh wow! You got to come back. We got to talk about that. No, even mention at the country
Music Awards, right.
That's another half hour to talk about.
It's another uphill battle.
Right, and strikingly similar conversation, but in a different way about like perspectives and the aesthetics that leads to people's realities, right? Like people have a certain, like you're number one and you make your history, but not one song, not a mention, just can't see it. You just can't see it. But thank you so much
As we
for
go
bringing
ahead, I
up.
just remind everybody that there's a statewide coalition in New Jersey Communities for Accountable Policing that works on these things. There's also a statewide coalition of violence intervention prevention organizations that drove the Seabrooks Washington bill. And one of the things, Amber, I want you to consider locally is hosting a conversation on Seabrooks Washington. We've got some good folks who are doing that work, and we've got some Asian voices that are in the mix on an expert level doing the work as well, right? So that's something I definitely want you to consider. We meet on Monday. We've got our statewide meeting Monday. Look forward to having you with us back on Monday as a coalition member. You with us? We got you, right? And Monday's a heavy day for us in this area too. It's the anniversary of Rashad Ashford's killing, the anniversary of Terrence Crutcher's killing. Terrence Crutcher, hands up, don't shoot. Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? Well, we can go on for this for a minute, but it just all points to the gravity and the seriousness of this work and why we all take it so serious and take each other serious and trying to get this justice.
And Amber, I left you a note in the chat. Try to read it before you completely sign off. And I know sometimes it looks far, but when things like this happen, it hits home and people respond differently. And even for it to happen on the day that they were doing the rally in Newark, if you can bring some intersection with that, with I'm losing the name. What's the name from the rally we were doing in Newark the same day, July 28th?
Sonia Massey.
Sonia Massey. She grew up with a woman who's a local senator, so she immediately got a response, but it was overwhelmed by these things that just keep happening like it's normal. But if you're able to contact her office, it is like we have the same thing going on. Is there anything we could do together?
Thank you so much for that suggestion and for your comment. All right, thank you all.
All right,
thank you for being here.
Take care.
All right, we'll see you Monday. Got you.
And that's another week for All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop
great show.
streaming show.
Great show.
Can we close with a word about Frankie Beverly and no? Okay.
Yeah. I'm restoring Friday Night Funk for Mr. Beverly, and he had one of the most original sounds of his generation. Very original.
Or if we just say,
huh?
Go ahead.
I mean, his in the context of the Philly sound, his sound was very different from everybody else's. Very different.
Or if we just say we reserve when DJ Rhino returns, that we'll have a full conversation about the lives of both, while talking in hip hop, Frankie Beverly and the voice, Darth Vader. I'm like losing names.
Yeah, James Earl Jones. I was going to shout out to James Earl Jones, who actually did high school speech and debate. And when he talks about the teacher, I suspect
it came over
that
speech impediment, didn't it?
Right. I suspect that conversation is a conversation with a debate and speech coach.
So he was a stutterer.
About that
so
too.
Jonathan, is that typical that people may come to you because they want to be debaters, but they also may come to you to help overcome
because they want to be better at speaking? Yeah. Well, they want to be better at speaking, right? We've had some kids who've been stutterers in the past, and it's actually they would need to be going to speech pathology, but there are some techniques that that can make it easier. Like I had somebody sing their stuff, like so they would put the same brain where they would sing, but they're speaking. They do it in voice, and then they stutter less. And that's I got from both students and from who stuttered and got over it, and some speech pathologists who were like, they just need to do certain things that are different when they do it. So they just need to sing the speech. But even though it doesn't sound like they're singing, they're using the same
language.
the same part of the brain that sings is the same part of the brain that then is delivering the speech, and they don't stutter. But that's just that I mean, that may not work with everybody, but that's worked with a few kids.
In closing, is that my beautiful mural that I love behind you? That mural that I saw with all the different debaters. Okay.
Oh no, I'm not at science. I'm not at science.
Okay. Well, thank you. This was a great week. We want to thank all our guests for being here. We started the show with Earl Scott and Dennis Porter, who were talking about the fentanyl crisis. So we thank them for taking the time. Zaid, do you want to thank your guests?
Yeah, I was loaded. Now I can't even name them all because I got half their names down.
Yep, and
Professor Carter and her team.
Josie Gonsalves and Linda Carter for helping us develop that and share how they're a developing network. And it's important, those of us who are now old heads to really appreciate that we have to create the spaces for the generations behind us to really come and take charge of this particular moment that's going to be theirs in the next moment anyway, right? And of course, Amber came in with her grace and the dignity that she reflects in terms of the community that she's organizing in the pursuit of justice for Victoria Lee and Fort Lee.
And let me channel my Congressman Payne. If he was here, he would say, Zaid, these young people, they got us.
And we are out until next week. All right.
Thank you.
Be careful. Be safe.
We'll see you and you don't.